Greetings, Mavericks and new viewers. Tonight, direct and live from the Maverick News Network World Studios. This is Maverick News with Rick Walker.
Welcome back, everyone. Great to have you all here. Hello, Mavericks and new viewers from all over the world. Special broadcast tonight. James Bauder of the Freedom Convoy is going to join us to talk about his application for political asylum in the United States. He'll explain why he left Canada and what he's hoping to achieve through this process. Also tonight, before we get into that, just a couple of news notes, because we're going to focus really on James's story tonight. I just want to highlight two stories ongoing this evening that you really need to be aware of, because we're not going to dig into, much of the other top news of the day. But big news out of Ukraine, where Russian forces launched a massive wave of strikes overnight, targeting multiple cities across the country. According to Ukraine's Air Force, Russia deployed a barrage of precision-guided weapons, including Kinzhal hypersonic missiles and attack drones, in what is being described as one of the largest, if not the largest, assaults of the ongoing conflict. The Russian Defense Ministry claims the strikes were a retaliation for what they call terrorist acts by the Kyiv regime, targeting military industrial facilities, a military airfield, and a refinery in and around Kyiv. Now, Ukrainian officials report the attacks caused significant damage, with explosions reported in Kyiv, Kharkiv, Sumy, Chernihiv regions, among others, and a customs terminal near Kalinovka in the Kyiv region, allegedly used for storing NATO-supplied ammunition, was also hit. The response online has been, well, let's say robust, with many Republican politicians sounding the alarm bell for Donald Trump tonight, telling him that his approach in dealing with Putin is not working. Republican Don Bacon saying, "Mr. President, your policy towards Russia is not working. While we negotiate, Putin bombs Ukrainian citizens and cities. Here is Kyiv today. It is time to change strategy. We and our allies must arm Ukraine to the teeth, and we need the toughest sanctions. Putin is mocking you and America." And you can see here Pastor Mark Burns also upset and calling out the Trump administration on this. Some other Republicans, not unhappy about what's going on over there at all. And here are some images from Kyiv tonight, showing the massive fires that have resulted from this. Also, there are reports that Russia has again been using chemical weapons, banned as part of this attack. And we will be exploring that story in more detail tomorrow night. Also, Trump signing the big, beautiful bill today, and that also is controversial. But Trump is saying that as a result of the big, beautiful bill passing and the tax policies being implemented, that the economy will take off like, as he says, a rocket ship. So again, there's another story we'll dig into more tomorrow night. But the James Bauder story is what we're focusing on tonight, because his story may well set new legal precedent in the United States and Canada. It could also affect diplomacy or diplomatic relations between Canada and the United States, I think. And we'll get into all of that with James Bauder, freedom trucker seeking political asylum in the United States. Stay with me. We'll come back with James on the other side of this.
Greetings, brave Mavericks. Our quest for truth continues. We go beyond fake news. Together we expose propaganda. Together we pull others out of rabbit holes. We are maverick thinkers. We are all unique individuals, defenders of individual rights and freedoms, credible, trusted, grounded in reality. Maverick News, defending free speech, Donate at freedomreporters.com. Do it now. Tomorrow may be too late. Maverick News. The world is watching.
Okay, let's bring someone most of you are familiar with and that's James Bauder. Hello, sir. How are you tonight?
Day by day, Rick. How about yourself?
Well, I'm hanging in there, and I'm way up here in the Great White North, but I understand you have kind of left the country.
Yes, I have.
Yeah,
I'm somewhere between the North Pole and the South Pole.
Somewhere in the US of A. Is that
correct?
Okay.
Yeah, I'm in exile.
Okay, that's a strong word.
We'll get into talking.
That is a strong word.
It is.
Yeah.
We'll get into talking about that in due time here. I'll explain all that in greater detail.
So why don't you, for people who maybe are not familiar with you, why don't you explain or just tell people who you are and what your background is with the Freedom Convoy?
Well, folks, thank you for supporting Rick here. I've been on Rick's show here numerous times before and always had a good conversation with him. For those that don't know me, my name is James Bauder, and I am one of the key role organizers and the founder of the Freedom Convoy. I started the convoy back in July of 2021. Where they made strategic plans to police on guard for thee, with respects to the unlawful mandates that were being thrown on Canadians from coast to coast to coast. I.e., if you wanted to go to a restaurant, you had to show your vaccine pass. If you wanted to go to a grocery store out in eastern provinces, you had to show your vax pass just to get groceries. The restaurants that were facing hundreds of thousands of dollars of fines, and restaurant owners getting put in jail, to folks getting tickets if they wanted to cross the border and they didn't have a vax pass. It was crazy times for all of us, and very fearful times for many of us that recognized that these violated our lawful freedoms of choice. And myself and others decided enough was enough, especially me as a truck driver, when my company came to me and said, James, we want you to take this vaccine in order for you to keep working. And I said, no. The line in the sand was drawn right there, right on the spot, and I quit. Went home to my wife, and that was in November of 2020. So from November of 2020 to July of 2021, I had sat back and really watched what was going on from multiple sources of information. From watching the mainstream media to watching investigative journalists like Rick here and others discuss this narrative. And maybe you can relate to what we're saying here is that in your gut, when you know things are wrong, when good men and women do nothing, evil prevails. So I made a stand, and that resulted in getting the national endorsement with Police on Guard for Thee to kickstart a nationwide campaign that would take my wife and I all across Canada and to the Parliament Hill where we had discussed numerous times with Canadians and with national groups for months the strategy if Trudeau was to put the federal mandates on the truckers requiring us to get jabbed in order to cross the border, that I would fill Ottawa with semis. And on December 10th, I'm on record on Parliament Hill on video with that exact statement, stating to Trudeau that if he was to put the mandates on, I would fill Ottawa with semis, and I lived up to my word. And why do I know that I could live up to that word is because of the months of strategic planning with national groups all across Canada, putting together all of the convoy routes, all of the places that we would stop over at night because truckers can't drive nonstop. So we had to have all those arranged. The overpasses across Canada that were filled with beautiful Canadians coming out with their flags and unity, to a bear hug strategy that was implemented to keep the peace, to writing the code of conduct, which was very, very clearly distributed out to all the captains that were recruited from coast to coast, saying that we will be lawful, we will be peaceful, we will be respectful, that there is no leader in this movement. You are there on your own accord, and that we would help aid the homeless, and we would also clean up and make the event cleaner than what we got there.
So can I just clarify? Are you saying that you started the convoy? You're the person who started it?
Yes. And there is substantiating evidence that the Crown prosecutors have starting from July onwards. Understand, Rick,
because
I had conversations and emails that date back to those exact conversations that go on and on and on. And the Crown has all this evidence. And I know that there's others out there, Rick, that have said they've started it.
That's right.
They're wrong. And their ego is their downfall. And, I've said to those people, would you gladly change the charges where the Crown prosecutors have the evidence and are charging me as the founder? Would you change, would you like to take my place? Sadly, they are not able to respond to those. So there's individuals out there that are led by their egos, and there's been a lot of that. I'm not here to talk about those people. That's yesterday's news. We have a much bigger issues on our plate right now to deal with than folks'
one
ego.
issue related to that, though, is legal assistance through the donations that came in, because I know some people have received assistance, other people have not. I think all or most of the money is being controlled by the Justice Center for Constitutional Freedoms, if I'm not mistaken, for that legal assistance. Have you? No, is that not true? Or actually, Freedom Corp, right? Isn't that the name of the organization?
That would also be incorrect.
Okay, so can you clarify?
Can you hear me?
I can hear you now again. Yeah, it's cut out there for a moment. Can you clarify that for me? What I really want to know is,
let's take you back to Ottawa.
Sure.
When the convoy was, on a day-to-day basis, and you've got law firms, non-for-profit JCCF, and you've got non-for-profit Democracy Fund, and they're going all over handing out their cards saying, we will represent you if you get any criminal charges. Okay. Then we're going to introduce the Emergency Act. And just before then, you've got some public figures that got arrested: Pat King, Freedom George, and Tamara Leach and Chris Barber. So they get arrested pre-Emergency Act. And then the big Emergency Act comes in, and they go and do their clean sweep operation and totally decimate anybody that was left. I was one of the ones that stayed right to the very end, and my wife and I, we got arrested. So then, coming out of Ottawa, the news cameras are off, and people are getting back to their lives, right? However, the nightmare for anybody that got charged, and there was hundreds of people that got charged, that nightmare just started. And we're talking about lawfare, political prosecution, political persecution, and religious persecution. So from there, we start each individual, myself included, starts the process of how are we going to defend against these malicious charges that are politically motivated. And some folks were lucky enough to get pro bono coverage from JCCF. Some folks were lucky enough to get coverage from Democracy Fund. Mm-hmm. That's the minority. The majority, the silent majority of those that got charges, all equal to and similar in nature, have been left abandoned and stranded to fend for themselves. And I'm sorry, this is gut-wrenching truth. I talked with my lawyer, Adam Blake, who is representing me from Democracy Fund, and I have my charges here in Canada completely covered pro bono. But I went on a journey of first starting with self-representative. Then I hired a lawyer named Monique Greener out of Ottawa. Then I fired Monique, not for her anything other than it just something didn't feel right in my gut, where it wasn't just conflict between the two of us, where I felt it's better that we separate. And then I went back into self-representation mode. Then I got Alan Honer with the director of Democracy Fund. We had a conversation, and he brought in the directors. We had another conversation, and everybody agreed that with the compelling evidence against me, that they would represent me completely moving forward, pro bono on everything. And at that time, they had said, "Hey, James, we know that you're in the public limelight, especially after you just took a picture with Alberta Premier Daniel Smith, and the media went crazy, attacked her, attacked me. The social media influencers that have pitted each other against each other through this whole movement, folks' opinions over facts, all the divisiveness that could happen took place." And I was in the thick of all of that and dealing with the death threats, dealing with the online slander, and as well as, Pat and Chris and Tamara and others that have made a stand together in unity, how we've all been torn apart because of people's opinions and their egos and their pride and their lack of discernment and their lack of being able to get proper information versus all the disinformation and misinformation that's being spread on the left and the right. Okay? So hopefully through this, we're able to start coming back to the table for the reasons that we all stood in the first place, which was this tyrannical communist government that is decimating our freedoms. It's wrong, and it needs to be recognized as wrong, and we've got to come back to the table together, all of us. Mm-hmm. Because the government right now, I can tell you this, Rick, is laughing at all of us. They really are. They're seeing the fighting going on online, pitting Pat followers against Chris Barber's followers, and Chris Barber's followers against Bridget followers, and people attacking me. And when does it get to end? When are grown adults going to stop participating in the division and get back to participating in the unity that brought us together? Is a question that I ask everybody moving forward. Because we have a massive fight on our hands.
Do you think that the use of the term communist is accurate or appropriate? Can you explain why
I would use communist, nationalist, fascist. I've said this before, Rick, is that we have an ism issue: communism, fascism, socialism, neoism, Marxism. But for some darn strange reason, the one ism that we should all be standing behind, which is nationalism, our government has serious problems with. So we've got an ism problem.
Can you explain what you mean by nationalism so people can understand where you're coming from?
Hey, I'm a Gen Xer. I'm turning 55. I come from the farm, and I grew up believing that we have this beautiful country of mixed cultures and identities and religions, and we're the true north, strong and free. And somehow, some way, since socialism really took its dark turn and infiltrated Canada, especially when Justin Trudeau got elected, we've seen the nationalism and the pride of our country be decimated, intentionally decimated, to try to
I think you're
divide us
speaking
out
about
of
this
those
in
core
terms of
morals and those core values.
Is it fair to say that you're kind of talking about the culture war issues more so than, say, in like wealth redistribution or social programs like healthcare? Or are those your concerns as well?
All of the above. If you're awake, you're awake. You understand how geopolitics works, and you understand the root of where all these policies are coming from, and the influence of China, for example, in our political sphere. You understand the influence of how the globalists have been operating for decades with 100-year plans, i.e. The World Economic Forum, i.e. the United Nations and their agendas, and how that's all infiltrated back in to our government. And all you have to do is just, bring up their policies and bring up the website of the Government of Canada, and then ask yourself, did you vote for any of that stuff? And the majority of folks say, no, I didn't. Yet we're being forced into it. So
yeah. So I hope I'm not jumping ahead here, but is that why you left Canada and now you're in the U.S.?
No. Why I left Canada? Why I left Canada?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, no. We're not here to talk about our political problems. That's another conversation that I think folks can have and talk for weeks and weeks and months on end.
Mm-hmm.
Why I'm in this situation is that the Crown prosecutors and my legal strategy was to move my case to the very end and to look at the other criminal indictable charged, which would be Pat King, Tamara Leach, and Chris Barber. And
when you say to the end, you mean to have your case handled last after all the other major cases?
Yeah, no, to have it handed at the very end, because I'm facing up to 15 years as a max term, not 10 years, 15 years. Mm-hmm. So my lawyers know that the government has publicly stated on record my name, not Chris, not Pat, not Tamara, but in the Parliament, they said James Bauder is trying to overthrow the government and cause an insurrection. And from that statement, the Crown has taken a very targeted approach to prosecute me to the fullest, because they know how much work and efforts I put into putting this together. This was not just a create a post and then a week later we're going to Ottawa. A lot of work, 18, 20, 22-hour days, 7 days a week went into crafting the plans and getting people to come together and be ready for the big event. So because of the evidence that the Crown prosecutors have, we wanted to use the transcripts that come from the other criminal indictable charged participants, Pat, Chris, and Tamara. okay, to look at those transcripts and look at the witness statements, look at what the Crown prosecutors are saying, doing, and look at if there's any weaknesses in their armor. And then from there, my trial starts in November and December of 2025, so at the end of the year. So I'll be the last person standing with all of these convoy charges.
Can before we move on, can you just talk a little bit more about the planning? Because as you said, it took long days.
We've already talked about the planning. Let's get. Let me continue with why I'm here filing for asylum. Is that lawyers came to me and they said, James, because of what's happening here in Canada is called lawfare, and how is the lawfare being committed? If you do your own due diligence and your own research, you're going to find that the last 10 years, Justin Trudeau has replaced a majority of the judges and the senators. I think 76% of the judicial judges are all Trudeau appointed. And the senators are also a large majority of Trudeau appointed. So I'm going to just give you an analysis here. Rick, tomorrow you're going to wake up and you're going to be Prime Minister of Canada. Okay? Booyah. However, you have this judicial system that Trudeau put in place, and you have the Senate that Trudeau put in place. And you want to make a bill or a motion or an act, because that's what governance is all about. How are you going to get it past the Senate and the judges? You're not. That's the reality. We are in a lot of trouble from a democratic and lawfare point of view. So what has happened here, Rick, is that, and I'm going to give, Pat King has got a really good example here that we can use as what will happen to me, is he gets charged, he does some jail time, he goes to trial, and he gets sentenced, and he also does more jail time, even though it's under the terms house arrest, it's still considered jail, and he has a criminal record. Then the Crown prosecutor says, no, I'm not happy with this. I want more jail time. That's lawfare. And that's also political prosecution. Right there, the pure definition of it. So now Pat has to go back into court, even though he's served his time, of which he never should have served one day, and gotten these charges will be proven without a shadow of a doubt that nobody should have ever gotten it. One charge, period, full stop. However, we're in this situation where hundreds of us have had to endure all this, and I'm just one person. So my lawyers came to me, Rick, and said, it's not looking good, James. Because of what's happening with Pat, Chris, and Tamara, they've all been found guilty of mischief as a minimum. And we don't know the outcome of the sentencing that will happen with Chris and Tamara, because that's still ongoing, but they know that they were sentenced and we know that they were found guilty. Okay. As well as all the other hundreds have all been found guilty. And anybody that's ever been successful, i.e. the Emergency Act, found unjustified and unwarranted and violated our rights, the Crown prosecutors go, well, wait. I'm going to appeal this, and I'm going to bump it up to a higher court where I know that I've got the stacked deck in my favor to get the verdict that I want. Does that, hopefully you understand that is what's going on. So I have had 3.5 years to endure being in check mode on a game of chess, a legal chessboard, where I've been used as a pawn for 3.5 years. And the Crown prosecutors are sitting there going, as soon as you appear, you're guilty. And if the judge doesn't give you the sentence we want, i.e. Pat's case, we're gonna commit more lawfare, more political prosecution, and persecution.
They appeal.
And they're going to appeal and bump it up to a court where they're going to win. So I sat down with my lawyers and I said, I'm not okay with that. And what are my options? And the only option where I can flip the chessboard back on the Crown prosecutor and put them in check, because I refuse to take a plea deal. I refuse. I'm innocent of all charges. I didn't.
Can you just tell people what are the charges so that we understand?
Bring those up. Bring those up, Rick, and you can read them right off. It's on the Gifts and Go there. Just bring them right up on the screen.
Okay, so
makes it a little easier because we can talk about that. And while you're digging up to that, you're going to notice when Rick brings this up on the screen, you're going to notice two big ones right off the bat. So just scroll down, read more on that post, and then just scroll down halfway down. Open that up a little bit and click read more. And you can go down a little bit to where the charges show up. Keep scrolling, keep scrolling, keep scrolling. Where's my glasses? I can't see.
You're gonna have to seeing the charges.
It's on the main.
Oh, it's probably here.
Yeah, right there. There you go. Keep going down a bit.
Still not seeing it. You're
it's on the first. It's on the first.
Very first one.
Yeah, very first one, and you'll see them. They do show up.
No, I'm not. I don't know where it is.
It's on there. I just seen it. I read it. It's been read many times. I don't have my glasses on, Rick, so I can't see. So you're my eyes. This was the section that I wanted you to have available, so that
it's right here. I just don't know. I apologize. I don't see it here, James.
Okay, there's 3 updates.
Yep. Basically, you're charged. Isn't it 3 different things they've charged you with?
No, that's why I was hoping that you had this available, because there's 5, and there's actually 2 that are really severe that backdated to December of 2021, which has to do with, in a sense, trying to overthrow the government, cause an insurrection.
Mm-hmm. Charged, here we are, I think.
There we are. Okay, so if you can zoom in or roll that up on those first 2 charges and read that off. So you got to be my eyes.
Sure, I'll read it for people.
You betcha.
Okay, summary of indictable of charges against James Bauder for his role in the Freedom Convoy. Charged May 16th, 2022. Counsel an uncommitted indictable offense. You're also charged with counsel an uncommitted indictable offense on May 16th.
Correct.
2022.
Look at the offense date. Look at the offense date.
Offense date 1st December 2021 to.
Right.
Yeah.
Nobody else in the entire Freedom Convoy has those dates assigned to them.
Okay.
That's because of the evidence that the Crown has, where they've compiled from July all the way through to December, and those are you'd have to be a lawyer, and I've got lots of lawyers. I have 7 lawyers, by the way. They could explain that a lot more, but they're serious, and that's why I'm facing 15 years, not 10, 15.
So this is from July of 2021.
Yep.
To December.
Yep.
And this is because of what the planning that we talked about?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
And that's why you say that you are the person who started the convoy.
I don't say that. There's enough. There's so much evidence, and Place on Guard is a very respected group. They've also validated that I am the founder. Period. Full stop. You're dealing with very credible RCMP officers nationwide that have all said the same thing, because there's email evidence to back that up. So,
Okay.
okay.
So this started at least back in July, the planning and so on.
Yes.
And that's what
Correct.
these charges are based on.
Correct.
Okay. Can I ask a question? I wasn't aware of that. So why did the planning start so far back in July? Because I was under the impression that this thing just sort of sprang up organically, but no.
No, it came from a conversation with my wife where she said, James, things are getting really real and surreal here in Calgary, and it's your job to protect, as the man of the house, it's your job to protect me. And I took that quite literally. And from there, if you're a person of faith, you might appreciate this story, is that I started seeking answers and solutions, and I formed a group called the Alberta Christian Preppers Alliance. And 6 weeks later, we're in a church that had kept its doors open through all the convoy with a very, very nice pastor. And I got baptized in a horse trough. And I broke down in tears. And from there, I also got the message very clearly given to me that I needed to start this thing called the Freedom Convoy. And I told the wife, we've got to go to Ottawa. We've got to make a stand. And from there, I contacted Police on Guard. And then I also started doing some recruiting and building a team, and understand that I'm also the founder of Canada Unity, which is a national group that's connected to other national groups. So had private Zoom rooms with them. And, we all started coming to the same conclusion that we have to do something. So my wife and I, we left Calgary in our big RV, and we started the journey going out to Ontario and promoting everything that we needed to do in order to make a stand together.
Interesting. So, and you were also involved in a previous convoy in 2019, the United We Roll
Correct.
convoy, right? Which was part of the Yellow Vest movement. And
no, that was never a Yellow Vest movement. I need to correct you.
I thought people say that
150%.
Didn't it
It was
start
never
that
a
way,
Yellow
and
Vest
then
movement.
and then
No,
it
it never did. Never did. Glenn Carrot is the founder of United Reroll Convoy. And Glenn had asked me, as because I just founded Canada Unity, and I'm also an oil field guy, truck driver. And he said, hey, James, you want to get in on this and come and just, do your thing? And I said, hey, this sounds like a really cool thing. That was my first introduction to protest and convoys and everything else. Up to that point, I'd never been involved in the movement. So this was all Glenn Carrot's conception and idea, and I supported him. And from there, it was an Alberta oil and gas initiative. It was never about the Yellow Vest. Yellow Vest hijacked the movement, and I supported that as well. I wore a Yellow Vest. However, it was not their planning. It wasn't their convoy. It wasn't they didn't start it. They jumped in, and they benefited from the work that Glenn Carrot had and the money that Glenn Carrot had put and invested in, which was a lot of money. So let's just be clear, if we're going to be talking truth, this wasn't a Yellow Vest movement. Okay, never was.
I mean, I've just heard people say that, and I'm just,
they're entitled to their opinions. However, I was there, and I know the facts.
Sure.
I wish people would stop spreading opinions over facts and actually get the root source of the information. And all you have to do is just say, hey, Glenn, he'll tell you about the Yellow Vests. And this wasn't Yellow Vest movement.
So the United We Roll convoy, like the focus of that was about the oil industry, right?
100%. It was all about the oil. It was all about the oil industry. Period. Full stop.
Yeah. But you did say you hadn't really, that's kind of when you became involved in the movement.
Correct.
And that's kind of connected to the freedom movement, all of that. So can you just
Yeah.
explain what you mean
So, I
by
mean,
that?
I got to witness the patriotism and nationalism of Canadians coming out to support that convoy, waving their flags and coming out on the overpasses as a convoy went by. And it was beautiful. Really touched me in the heart. And I always pointed the camera at people. So I had my Canada Unity cameras going. And you never see me, but I did a ton of interviews with folks where I just said, "Hey, what do you think about this? And how you feeling about this?" And started to move forward towards Ottawa. And when I got to Ottawa, I'm seeing all these politicians stumbling all over themselves on the Parliament Hill. I'd never been to Ottawa before, and right beside Justin Trudeau's office, I see homeless, and then I see another homeless, and then I see another homeless, and another homeless, and I just see this epic wave of suffering and people, right there. Here's the politicians stumbling all over themselves with their egos, wanting to be in the camera, and we got homeless that are suffering. So I left the crowd and I went out and I grabbed a bunch of food and I took my little camera and I pointed it at the homeless and I gave them sandwiches and I said, would you mind sharing your story? And I didn't know at the time, but I created about a one and a half, almost 2 hour little mini documentary on Ottawa's homeless. And also the call for Ottawa citizens to do more and step up and solve this problem, which was my first real eye opener that we've got some serious crises going on here. And from there I went back home to Calgary, and that sort of said, okay, that was interesting. Now, what's next? And me with my little Canada Unity camera and going out to events and so on and so forth. That's when I started to get involved in people standing up against a multitude of political issues that stem from the leftist-driven government called Justin Trudeau and his tyrants. And later on, COVID hit, and then I just continued.
Right. So it really kind of started in 2019, and then you continued your activism. And then when the pandemic hit, you began planning the convoy, and that transpired over a number of months from, I guess, July at least on. And then that mushroomed into what really amounted to one of the largest, if not the largest, protests in Canadian history.
I would say it was the largest, without a shadow of a doubt. It was at least the largest convoy in history.
Sure, yeah, massive.
From my eyes, I got to witness the whole thing. And then also dealing with all the police liaison officers that were calling me every hour, every half hour, every 15 minutes, all across the entire convoy routes. And to hear their excitement. They were at first it was the police were really excited and happy to be part of this. And the sidetrack that happened once we got to Ottawa by an agreement that we had already set in place was something that I had talked to and said numerous times and asked people, would you be willing to take a parking ticket for your freedom? And the original plan was that when we got to Ottawa, we would park in the side streets. For real. So, unbeknownst to me, I'm going over, I left Armpire and had to zip over and drive all night to get over to the East Convoy. Remember, there was 3 convoy routes. There was from Sarnia all the way up through Toronto and in through Kingsland. There was also from Vancouver Island all the way, that was the biggest and longest one, all the way to Ottawa. And then there was all the East Coast and Quebec routes that all made together over a period of 2 days. So I was not very happy when the police were letting everybody just take over the streets, as well as the police were blockading certain aspects of streets. So it became a cluster mess. I'm a trucker, and I'm also respecting your followers here. I'll keep my language respectful. I have other words.
Mm-hmm.
So that whole strategy of parking ticket for freedom went right out the door. And we were in a 2 to 3 day holy crap mode, trying to get a control of everything, work with the police, work with protesters, work with truckers. And within 3 days, everything started to settle down to where we had some resemblance. But the police blindsided us in Ottawa. Epic blindside. And they violated plans and agreements and strategies on how to flow everything and where they were supposed to be. And I've got all of the maps, every one of them, which is in evidence files and disclosure files.
Maps of what, James?
What was supposed to take place and agreed upon with the police.
with the liaison officers and police. Okay.
Yeah.
I understand. Maybe we can just complete looking at what your charges are here.
So those two charges are at the top are unique to James Bauder and James Bauder alone, and then the other three are unique to anybody that was charged during the Emergency Act, and everybody's gotten the same charges except the mischief charge is a criminal indictable one, which unfortunately it doesn't matter who you are, what you are. You're getting charged guilty with that charge, and what they're doing is they're plea dealing with lawyers back and forth, saying we'll drop the other two, but we're going to charge you with mischief. And because the judges have all agreed upon this, that we've got to charge them with something, even though there's no victim with those mischief charges, which is unprecedented in itself. You're still going to get a criminal record, and the judge can then impose whatever sentence they want, whether it be community service as a minimum to 5 years as a max, or 10 years as a max, which is unreal. Like a mischief charge when you got rapists and murderers and drug dealers and child sex traffickers and everything else, and they get less jail time potentially than a mischief charge. These are
the maximums, and this is, I think, the first time you've been facing these kinds of charges. So,
I've never had to go. I don't have a criminal record. I've never been in trouble with the law ever.
So I mean, we don't know ultimately what you might end up being sentenced with if found guilty.
I have to, step in here with what my lawyers have said, is that you're going to face similar punishment because you're a target of the Crown. So you'll face, similar, if not more severe punishment, because the Crown has made a very clear statement
in the protest.
Yeah, the Crown has made a very clear statement: is that Chris, Tamara, and Pat and myself are the trophies on their mantle that they want to set examples of, so that they can show all of Canada, if you ever think of doing this again, here's these people you've been following and fighting about, sadly, since this all started. But here's these folks that all came together in unity for the same reason, the unlawful mandates that were being imposed upon us, and wanting lawful freedom of choice restored.
This is really because of this memorandum of understanding that you wrote, and that was controversial, and that is largely what the government based its decision even to bring out the Emergencies Act. They've used that as sort of the basis, if I'm not mistaken. Can you speak to that?
Yeah, there's that's part of it. According to the lawyers, that's just one small part, but that definitely has some implications, and
Because just
there's been
if
a lot
I
of
understand
so
the memorandum, the MOU you wrote,
yeah.
and it called for the Governor General to dissolve the
No,
government, the
no,
Parliament. No,
no,
can you explain,
no,
please?
no. You're repeating what the fake media said.
Yeah, I'm just
Yep,
from notes. So
yep.
that's why you're here,
So
James. So
you're
go
dealing
ahead
with
and clarify.
so what the memorandum of understanding is a document where it represents all the people of Canada from all faiths, religions, denominations, all indigenous, everything from all walks of life, where we, the people, are seeking counsel with our government. And if anybody had challenged and went into an MLA or an MP or a councillor or a mayor and said, I don't agree with these mandates, with these tickets, what are you going to do about it? Here's this Charter of Rights thing. You're violating my rights. And you got the same response nationwide as everybody else did of a closed door, no response, and you got fed this narrative from the media and from our politicians, comply, comply, comply. So millions of us in Canada said, no, we're not going to comply to this, because we've looked at the laws called international laws, we've looked at Nuremberg laws, we've looked at multiple laws, and what you're doing is wrong, and you're violating a multitude of laws. So we captured all of those laws in the MOU, and then we had a request. Now, if you've never understood how an MOU works, it is a draft that was presented to the government. Draft. It takes two parties to make it a binding agreement. The people's signature, which we discussed, would have been formed as a committee of doctors, of lawyers. I wouldn't have been on that committee. Okay. However, in the MOU, we mentioned that the the Governor General and the Senate have a duty to uphold, amend, and enforce the laws. And if they don't want, as per these laws, to do the right thing, then they should step down.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? That was it. That they should step down. Nothing about James saying anything undemocratic. And I can prove this statement because in the MOU, the strategy, had I kept it going, was to take all of the digitalized signatures that were the same data as if you were to go to Elections Canada and or to the federal government and say, I want to do a petition, but it's on their server, but the information they're going to require from you, your date of birth, your address, your postal code, first, last name, and all the rest of that stuff, phone number, and then you need somebody to notarize that petition. But then they control everything. Well, we had the same premise where we have all these legal signatures being collected, i.e., if anybody's ever done a real estate venture or had a bank send them something and it's through DocuSign, which is a legalized signature process that we can do now. Mm-hmm. Well, we were hosted on DocuSign and we crashed their server globally on the third day of launching the MOU. It became the highest signed petition in Canadian history. Hundreds of thousands of Canadians.
That's true. Yep.
Read through it and seen through it. And for those that have thrown me under the bus on this, you're getting your narrative and you're getting your opinion from the fake media. I'm sorry, but you're getting it from the guy that wrote it, as well as my lawyers that are saying there's nothing in this document whatsoever that has anything to do with overthrowing, causing an insurrection. That is the character assassination that was conducted to create division and create fear, which the media was very successful at doing because they wanted to take the leaders out. And that's why I, out of good faith and goodwill, did not want to take away from the movement. And it wasn't about James, it was about all of us. So I respectfully rescinded the MOU. However, if I'd kept it going, I had inside, understand I'm surrounded by veterans. I'm surrounded by former, the police on guard folks, their intelligence and their experience, where they said, James, you're in real big trouble here, where you've hit a sore spot with the government. You're right on target, and you could be disappeared. You and your wife could be gone. So we made
like unalived, kind of disappeared, or
just disappeared per se is the words that were used to me, and I understood that to be put away for a very long time. Understand that they've got a lot of power. They've got a lot of power in Canada to do vicious acts on its own citizens, and they've got a history of doing stuff like this. So it doesn't take very much of a smart man to put two and two together to realize that, okay, I need to do what's best for James and my wife.
The government has a history of disappearing people in Canada?
That's another conversation, and I exercise people to use their discernment and do their own research. And you'll find out.
As I was preparing for this, I did come across this, and can I ask you to just maybe clarify this? You were on the Sovereign Soul show, and right. I'm going to play a little clip. I just have this one, and there was some information in here that I wasn't aware of prior. So I'll just play it, and then you can just comment or clarify.
So it's wintertime, and what people watched were when the Ottawa Police Services, when the RCMP, and then also the mercenaries, which were hired, and the United Nations members who didn't speak English, dressed in uniforms, came in. The jackboots literally moved everybody out of the city. We saw people who had been driven, loaded up cop cars, driven way into the outskirts of Ottawa, 20, 30, some reported 50 kilometers away from Ottawa, and dropped off that afternoon and that evening in the dead of winter and told never to return. Is that what happened?
I know people on our team had been arrested and dropped off out of town. So I know that actually really truly happened. And we were just, wow, the level of low, they're just keep lowering it. What lower low could we go to? Well, Trudeau solved that.
They just murdered an old man. They trampled a grandmother who barely survived with the horses. We have the WhatsApp feed from the RCMP, who rode those horses, cheering about it. That thread was exposed to 48 hours, not even after. And what happened next for you guys?
Sorry about that.
So
there
Rick,
was stuff in there I hadn't really heard before.
I apologize, but when you played that, the sound was muted. I didn't hear a thing.
Hear that? Okay,
not a thing. So what's your question?
Yeah, so Brad Wozni says that the government brought in mercenaries. And
yes.
And UN soldiers.
Yes. Well, from Ukraine specifically.
they brought in UN soldiers from Ukraine to.
Yes. Well, they used the UN planes, and they were Ukraine soldiers.
Ukrainian soldiers.
Mm-hmm.
Where was I watched that's news to me, James. I didn't see any evidence of that during the Public Order Emergency Commission inquiry. I didn't, and all the, the documents showing where the police services came from. We know that it's RCMP, that it's local police, that there were police brought in from Quebec, and that these were police services.
So you're talking about a monkey court versus a real court.
Okay.
And a monkey court that has a self-appointed buddy of Justin Trudeau, whose mandate is to protect Justin Trudeau from treason and treason charges, to protect the government of Canada from treason charges. Do you think they're going to dissolve all the information?
Well, you're telling me that they brought in Ukrainian soldiers. Where's your evidence of that?
I don't have, and so here's the thing. I do not have that evidence. So I am guilty, and I will be coming forward on this, where I've been told by military folks that were boots on the ground, from vets, from intelligence folks that have a background in all this, that they were able to identify 2 UN planes that were flown in about 4 hours east of Ottawa. So this is what I was told, and that the origin of the planes came from Ukraine. Now, I don't have any more evidence other than being told.
So somebody just told you that.
Yeah, we're talking. We had some really good intelligence officers that have years and years and years of experience. Former military.
Thing I heard there, James, was that an old man was murdered.
Well, so that's Brad's story, and I have been told that no, he wasn't. So there's conflicting reports out there. I do know that I was present within eyesight of that trampling, where a grandmother and another gentleman got trampled. I seen it with my own eyes.
Yeah.
And from there, like, I was right there. And from there, I've heard conflicting reports that that gentleman was dead. And then I've heard also where some folks have come forward from his family and said, no, he's alive. So it's interesting how social media influencers, podcasters, folks that we follow, have varying degrees of information that may or may not be correct. Okay.
Indeed.
So I've always operated on the same facts as I can present them through my eyes, from day one, and I have never veered off of that. And I've always told people that you've got to do more constructive collection of information to get. Instead, here's what'll happen is there's some people out there that are going to see that Brad Wasley show, and they're going to believe it. Then they're going to spread it to the next person, right. And the next person is going to believe it.
That's right.
And Rick, you have you didn't get to where you are. You're an investigative journalist, which means you're not going to take just one source. You're going to dig, and you're going to get multiple sources, and then you're going to weigh them out and go, okay, somewhere in here is, to the best of my recollection as an investigative journalist, the truth. Correct?
Well, the truth is no one was murdered during the Freedom Convoy.
I would tend to agree. I think,
there's zero evidence of that. Yes, there were some people trampled. There was video of a guy laying in the snow being pulled. He was just saying, go ahead, pull me away. So from a distance, it kind of looks like he could maybe have been a dead guy. He's just laying in the snow while they pulled him.
Well, he
There
got
was
he got
video of that,
trampled
which
up
was
a
later
little bit.
deleted. He was not
Yeah.
dead.
No, and I
Nobody
think the
was murdered.
family,
Nobody was
yeah,
murdered during the Freedom Convoy.
the
Nobody was
family, I think,
disappeared.
had,
And James, I submit to you that there is zero evidence, because it didn't happen, that there were no Ukrainian soldiers on the front line there.
I
beating
think they were the
people.
Quebec ones that
Yeah, well,
folks
they're
were.
not Ukrainian soldiers. There was no military there. It was police services. Those
Yeah,
are the
I
facts.
would agree with you. I would agree with you on that. So
Yeah.
that's the references of folks have got different opinions. Everybody has got to slow down, okay?
Yes, indeed.
And
Because when it
just
comes to
take it.
things like that, it's not about opinions. It is about
it-
facts and real information, and it's important
Correct.
that we stick to the truth, right? And
Correct. I 100% agree with you on that.
yeah, because that's
And
not
I'm
going to
glad
help
that
you at all.
I'm glad you pulled that up, because those that are going to go watch that show, they may go down that rabbit hole and start to believe things that they shouldn't be believing. And I'm not responsible for a multitude of misinformation and disinformation. And as I mentioned, that's on both sides, the left and the right.
Indeed.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah, I agree with that too.
Yeah. It's frustrating.
Yeah,
it's
so
frustrating.
So did we cover all your charges here? Intimidation,
Yeah, we
by
did.
blocking or obstruction, highway, obstruct, resist,
none of that.
public peace
None of
officer.
that. This is a witch hunt. It's the same as everybody else that's been charged, and it doesn't matter. At the end of the day, the Crown prosecutors have made a political position. These are politically motivated charges, and a compelling question would be: is after the emergency, in the real court of law, not the monkey court of the public inquiry, but when a federal judge comes forward and says, "Hey, Justin Trudeau, you didn't have the right to enact the Emergency Act," well, then at that very day, or at least maybe the very next day, all the charges should have been dropped. No question. Even my lawyers agree on this. Everybody's charges, we all should have been, that should have been the end of it. However, we're dealing with lawfare and political prosecution and making examples and following their narrative.
Yeah, I'm not sure if that's a correct legal interpretation, but I understand where you're coming from. I do. I'm not sure that that's actually an accurate legal interpretation because of the invocation of the Emergencies Act, that all the charges for all these various things should have been dropped.
Was there any violence?
Because,
was there any damages? Nothing, right? This is just all. This is all.
Because I'm not sure that the charges are specific to the EA. It's so that's for the lawyers to decide, I guess.
100%. 100%. Had that EA not been enacted, you wouldn't have had all those charges. True story. So they're all linked together. But what happens is that the Crown prosecutors have put it in appeal.
But
well,
you can still be charged with mischief without the EA.
I have 7 lawyers. How many do you have? I have 7 lawyers. How many do you have? Okay, well, they're all saying the same thing
from time to time.
All the Democracy Fund lawyers are all saying the same thing. They're all related. And had the Emergency Act not been implemented, none of those charges would be.
The Emergency Act simply gives the government enhanced powers to respond to what they see potentially is, in this case, a national security threat, a public safety issue. And so then they can bring in, they can suspend certain rights and things of that nature, but that doesn't necessarily translate into the ability to lay specific kinds of charges, like a mischief charge. They could lay those charges with or without the EA. So I submit that.
Well, they never did. They never did.
Never did what?
They never. So hundreds of people, we all got charged after the Emergency Act on all the same charges. That's what the police officers were just blanket statement giving.
Yeah.
to everybody.
This
Okay.
is a matter of,
So
this
there
is
is a
now a matter of
correlation.
legal opinion
There is a
and how these
correlation
charges
between
might
the
be
two.
administered. But regardless, I totally understand where you're coming from. And
And for my
nobody
lawyers,
was
they
more
could have
upset,
went.
James, about Trudeau invoking the Emergencies Act than I was, because I
Well,
absolutely came out and said at that moment that in many respects Canada died that day because of his use of the EA in the way that he used it. I said that he weaponized it against
yeah.
his own people, and I didn't agree with it at all. I
No.
think it was a huge mistake for a variety of reasons.
Yep.
Now, that being said,
Right.
as a result of everything you're facing, now you're down in the United States, and so I'll just
Yeah.
throw it back to you to kind of get us back on track with where you want to take the story.
So lawyers have said it's inevitable. You're going to do some jail time, and probably not the max term. However, definitely you're going to do some jail time. And I said, no darn tootin' way. That's not going to happen. So doing the research on what are my options, and the only option left for me to make a stand was filing for political asylum. And originally, I looked at multiple countries all across the board. One was Russia, where they don't have an extradition treaty. A large population of Russia is Christian roots and everything else, and there's also been a huge influx of Canadians that have relocated to Russia. So it was like, okay, well, they can't extradite me, but it's cold, and I don't really want to, I'm a truck driver, and I'm used to driving throughout USA, and then I was like, you know what? Here's President Trump. Hang on here. There's he's been very supportive of the truckers. He also understands about political prosecution and political persecution and lawfare. So, if I was to take my stand in USA, even though there is a safe third world country agreement, international agreement between Canada and USA where I can be extradited, and we can get into how that process takes place. It's not something that's just cut and dried where they can just issue a warrant and USA has to surrender me. No, it has to actually go through a legal process. And the charges that you just seen would then be tried in a U.S. court first, then extradited back to Canada if and only if the Crown prosecutors proceed come November with an extradition warrant. Okay, so between here and then of November, my lawyers and the Crown will battle it back and forth, where my lawyers will keep sticking it to the Crown saying full acquittal, full acquittal, full acquittal, full acquittal, no deal, no deal, no deal. Okay, so that's part of the process. The Crown may say, no darn way, we're going to, we want James to attend here and we want to proceed with this trial. Well, between here and November, I will have had my application for asylum. According to my lawyers, everything should be. I've got one of the strongest cases in U.S. history of being a Canadian accepted and bypassing a safe country agreement because of the outstanding level of proof, where I have affidavits from doctors, from police, from other convoy participants. I have an immense amount of supporting evidence to prove that lawfare has been taking place here in Canada, that political prosecution has taken place in Canada, political persecution has taken place in Canada, and religious persecution has taken place in Canada. And the result of all of those four harms have taken place to me personally. I'm the asylum applicant, but also harms have taken place to thousands of Canadians. Thousands. So this is where none of that would matter in Canada should I go and be tried in Canada? Because why? Go back to the imbalance of the judicial scales. You know, they've got to be in the middle, 50-50. Right now, it's stacked to far left leaning judges where they're playing lawfare games on everybody. So all of that evidence, and we're talking a mountain of it, binders and binders and binders of evidence, is sitting there with my lawyers. And then how it would proceed is that they would say, hey, USA, we want to extradite James. Well, then now they're going to be dealing with all of that credible evidence that's sitting there waiting, and how they've connected lawfare, and have to make explanation on how are you going to guarantee that this isn't going to happen in his safety? And prime example is that, okay, how many people have been incarcerated and put in solitary confinement? Do you have the answer on that, Rick? And
how many people have been arrested and placed in solitary?
You know, solitary confinement is an act of torture. Okay, it violates laws. We're not supposed to do that to our prisoners. You know, it's not allowed, especially for mischief charges. Absurd. Okay, so that all gets dealt with in a judicial system that's going to be fair, and they have to be able to prove to the U.S. government, which is protecting me. And that's without President Trump getting involved. I am maneuvering every angle I can do based on President Trump's support of the Freedom Convoy and high-profile lawyers, senators, and so on and so forth, doctors. A large team of support is coming to my aid, providing affidavits, and everybody that is in that team is moving forward with strong, solid evidence. And understand, I have one of the top lawyers in USA. He's not taking this case on lightly. His words, his quote, "This is a case of a lifetime."
Who's your lawyer?
Matthew Copeland. And you could research him. He's on that Gifts and Go. His credentials speak for themselves. He's the top dog in USA.
You have a total of 7 lawyers. How can you afford that?
Well, I've got lawyers for the lawsuit where I'm on I'm on a lawsuit suing the government for the unlawful seizure of bank accounts. So I've got lawyers on that side. I've got lawyers with Democracy Fund on the criminal side. And then I've got lawyers in USA, which I have to pay for. That's where I'm seeking some help here. That can take care of this unprecedented political asylum application and the process thereafter of potential courtroom time all the way up to the Supreme Court if needed before I can be extradited. So it's a pretty complex legal battle still ahead of me. However, this is a game changer if President Trump gets involved, which so far we're confident that we can't speak for the man. However, the amount of pressure that will start to apply towards him as this story gains, I've got some big interviews with folks in the States here where, we'll be talking to millions versus, smaller audiences in Canada that are all shadow banned and censored and everything else. So I do have some professional teams that are coming in that are going to be putting me on a media circuit that will get this story out to hundreds of millions. And so far, the public court, for those that have been following, they realize the severity of everything. And, they're trying to look at this from, how can this actually help all of the convoy participants, is that we're going to be lobbying President Trump to intervene. And what better man to talk about persecution and lawfare and so on and so forth than Trump? But he's also made a commitment to stand beside and behind and in front of all the truckers till the very end. Well, the very end is not over for us. So we do need his help, and he is in a position where he can actually help. From a geopolitical point of view, working with Prime Minister Carney back and forth, and the two attorney generals, which would be Pam Bondi and the Canadian Attorney General, and looking at the evidence of all the persecuted, all the lawfare, all the political prosecutions, not just mine, and saying, when are you going to pardon everybody? When are you going to stop this? Because you're committing crimes against Canadians. And I have the proof. It's not opinions here. Okay, I'm dealing with proof. Hard factual evidence.
So you want the President of the United States and the Trump administration to become directly involved in the Canadian legal process as it relates to the Freedom Convoy protesters who have been charged. You want the U.S. government to intervene in the Canadian legal process.
Well, they can't intervene. Okay,
you want them to
that's something they can't do, but they can speak about it and they can apply pressure, especially with the geopolitical state right now between USA and Canada. This is just going to give President Trump more ammunition, if any, to point out that Canada is not a safe country.
Yeah,
and here's all this evidence. Right? Here's all this evidence.
This is really why I think your case is potentially precedent setting, because I don't think there has been a case since 1867 where a Canadian has been granted political asylum in the United States. And that's because the two governments largely have viewed each other as being liberal democracies where the rule of law is enforced and applied. And so each country viewed the other as a safe, free society where even refugees fleeing persecution could find refuge and sanctuary.
Correct.
And so now if your case is successful and your application for asylum is granted, this changes everything, because now that would then be an acknowledgement or even an accusation on the US government's part. They would then be viewing Canada as a country that is no longer safe, that it is a country that is authoritarian, tyrannical, not safe, not a democracy, not a free country, and potentially even a threat to the national security of the United States. Is that fair?
I think if I could quote all the lawyers that I've been talking to, they've all said just about exactly what you just said. So well done, Rick, on that analogy, because it's coming from folks that have pretty high law degrees and in multiple years of experience, and they're saying the same thing.
Well,
so,
yeah, I certainly see why
you nailed it. You nailed it.
Yeah. And that's really ultimately where this could lead and what it ultimately will be all about. It's not just about James Bauder.
No.
This is really putting Canada on trial.
Correct. And you can so paint a picture. Everybody after COVID and the Freedom Convoy, everybody went back to their lives. Things started to restore. Relationships that were broken started to get repaired. Businesses that were shut down started to reopen, and folks started to dig themselves out of the financial hole. Meanwhile, the persecuted are suffering. Okay, the lawfare is ongoing. Case in point, Pat, Chris, Tamara, and others, right, that you don't know about, as I've mentioned. So that battle is still real. And that's happened all over the world. Okay, even in USA, things have returned back to normal, where folks have just sort of, chalked up COVID as one of the worst nightmares of their lives, and they want to get back to normal again. And normal for those that are going through this doesn't exist for us because we've got this big burden on our backs, and it's unfair. for all of us. So, I think that,
So is it fair to say that the manifestation of this tyranny really came forth and presented itself through the mandates restricting truckers from traveling over the border because of the vaccines, right?
well, that's where I made my stand.
Yeah.
And how did we get millions of supporters? Not, a handful like the legacy media would say, but millions from coast to coast to coast. And then it became hundreds of millions worldwide, combined with freedom convoys taking place in multiple countries all over the world. So this became a global movement. And that was very shortly after President Trump exposed it, called it out for what it is. You know him. He's gonna call a spade a spade. He's not gonna hold off. He's not politically correct. He's Trump. And I think that's why he's president as well. Voted in by a mass majority.
And so you think that there's
he does.
more freedom on the US side?
Now there is. Way more.
Uh-huh.
I'm sorry, but I'm seeing it with my own eyes.
Was there then?
There's leaps and bounds of freedoms being restored since he's been in office for 6 months now, and it's just every week you just hear more and more and more of the right things that need to be done to restore trust in our institutions. People that should be held accountable are now starting to be held accountable. Doctors are being arrested for fraud. There is this is just starting with respects to he's had to mobilize a team and understand a presidency team is in the 10,000 people he's got to hire. So that takes you don't just flip a switch and everybody's in play. He has to put all those positions in. Then he has to regain control of the weaponized courts, which just happened here last week with the Supreme Court coming forward and shutting down all of those judges at the lower levels that were holding all the policies and executive orders and bills hostage, because they're all left-leaning Democratic judges, but yet they're not following the laws. And so the Supreme Court just restored the Constitution for the first time in a long time. And now all of those policies and executive orders, the things that President Trump was elected to do by a mass majority of Americans, he doesn't have any blocks in front of him. And they can start to proceed forward with all of the agendas that they ran on their election promises to do. And he's doing them with his entire team.
Isn't strange language, though? And I understand, but at the same time, you just were concerned about Justin Trudeau appointing judges and therefore applying some sort of political bias. And yet here you are applauding President Trump for shutting down judges, for regaining control of the court.
He didn't. He didn't. Let's back that up. No, he didn't. So Trump has always followed the law. The courts have always been the ones that have decided.
I don't know if that's
and he had to sit back.
I don't know if that's actually true, James.
I do know, because he sat back and this was in the Supreme Court, not President Trump. He doesn't have control over the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court could have said, "Hey,
you just shut down a bunch of judges, and you said he needs to regain control."
The Supreme Court shut down the leftist-leaning judges.
I know I know he's ignored some orders from judges of late. I know he did that.
But he's always followed the law all the way through, and the law is always at the end of the day through the Supreme Court, not him, but the Supreme Court has always upheld the law. but it
Well,
takes
that's
time.
that's because
It takes time
that's
to go through
because of
that
the recent
process.
Supreme Court ruling that said that he can basically do whatever he wants as long as it's in the national interest. So I don't
Well,
think the law really
at this
applies to him.
point,
He is in many
at this
respects
point,
above the law.
so let's just use the immigration for example,
Yeah.
right? So there, the judges on the lower courts are saying no, we're not going to follow ICE's orders or the president's executive orders, and so they hold it up in court. So President Trump follows that. He has no choice. So then Trump plays his legal card, and it's a counteract. But the ones that decide the fate is the Supreme Court. And if you've been following all of the legal precedences and procedures, it's all been handled at the Supreme Court level, not President Trump,
Mhm.
all the way through. And the Supreme Court was the one that called out all of these liberal judges that the Democrats had put in place and said, you cannot override federal policies, federal laws, and hijack the Constitution. Okay,
Well,
that didn't come from President Trump. So now all of the people that work in the the government, i.e. Pam Bondi, the Attorney General, Kash Patel, the FBI, and so on and so on and so forth. All these departments have executive orders and or bills that have passed through the Senate and passed through into law. And the crazy judges out there, they don't have any power over blocking the folks that need to do their jobs and are in a position and authority to do their jobs as per the law.
Well,
But you
these are
don't just snap your
ongoing legal
finger and that
battles,
happens overnight. I think in 6
and at
months.
times Trump has simply been ignoring some of these orders from judges. He certainly has, and you and I both don't want to see the military on the streets, though. Opposing protesters, as obviously because you were concerned about Ukrainian military, UN soldiers coming in.
Well,
right?
I can tell you
that.
well, everybody. Here's my take: everybody's allowed to protest,
Yeah.
but then you have illegal law-breaking people that are criminals, and they're rioting, and you have a government that is at the local level that is supporting this. Where do you draw the line? When you have gang rapers and murderers and all sorts of bad actors that are here illegally breaking the law to begin with, child like sex traffickers and drug traffickers and really bad people breaking the law, being funded by Democrats, follow the money on this, and being supported by Democrat elected officials. There's a reason that they say the swamp needs to be drained. So you also have to protect your federal buildings.
Just in fairness, how are we determining who among these people are child rapists?
I don't know the answer to that. Obviously, they've got records and so on and so forth. They, when people are
so
detained,
when you were charged, did they just scoop you up off the street, stick you on an airplane, and ship you off to El Salvador?
No. When they arrested me, they ran my fingerprints. They ran me through the database.
To go to court,
and they said, "Oh, geez, James here, he's got no criminal record."
Yeah.
It's no more different. They get to these people. And they run them through the database, and they're like, "Wait a minute, you're a bad person, bad actor. You come from this prison or this prison or this prison." How many countries' prisons were emptied through Biden's era? Emptied into USA.
So the ICE agents become judge, jury, and executioner on the spot.
No, they're following laws.
An executive order.
I'm just. That's not we're getting off topic here.
A little, no,
I'm
not
dealing with
entirely, because
Canada, James,
I'm just
and
asking you, you know, why do you
yeah.
feel there's more? I'm trying to understand why you're going to the U.S. to find more freedom when, you know, I see a lot of problems on the U.S. side too, and you're kind of, you know, leaving
I see
Canada.
problems from socialists, and socialists are not elected as the majority. Period. Full stop.
Yeah.
And we've got a socialist issue across this world, and it is really unfortunate that folks are
That's
taking
the other
a
thing, though,
position
James.
to.
It's like what happens 3 years from now if people like Zoran Mamdani, who is a socialist out of
Yeah,
New York, becomes more prominent, and the Democratic Socialists come to power after Trump. Now you've just got a socialist government in the U.S. So, you know, it's present in the U.S. just as much as it is in Canada.
well, the difference between U.S. and Canada is that Canada is still under a socialist government, and at least right now for the next 3.5 years, the amount of house cleaning and draining swamp and catching all of the people that have been committing fraud and committing crimes against humanity, and so on and so on and so forth, can be held to account, and justice can be restored. And I know 4 years goes by pretty quick, but an awful lot of the bad actors, you know, they're going to have to face their maker here and face the ramifications of you know, the crimes that they've been committing. And we don't have any of that in Canada right now, so that's a big difference. So you know, we're not there in 4 years. It could be another Republican majority. I don't know the answer to that. And you know, Lord help us if we ever wake up to more socialism. We need we need this stuff to end. It's the root of our problems. It destroys democracies, and all you have to do is look in history and ask where in history has socialism ever been successful other than destroying the foundation of society.
So the issue for you is socialism.
Socialism, Marxism, Neoism, fascism, it's the isms.
Mm-hmm.
Okay?
McCarthyism. There's that too. Sorry.
That's another subject. I mean, politics is politics, and everybody is entitled to opinions.
Yeah,
Everybody is entitled to. Everybody's entitled to opinions.
Yeah.
You know, I'm in a situation where opinions are not relevant. It's facts, and
politics
it's
is largely
evidence-based
about opinion and perspective, and even reality constructs. It's what people believe ultimately when it comes to politics, and even whether countries exist or not. You say that you're surrounded by angels down there, though. A lot of people very supportive.
Well, I mean, I'm in a
pretty heavy hitters who've come to your aid.
I'm very blessed with you know, there's those that know me, and also know that you know, I've been pretty successful at networking large groups to come together in the past. So I've been doing a lot of that networking and reaching out to good folks, with some of them with big brains, some of them with big hearts, and working collaboratively together to ensure that I'm protected. Because at the end of the day, it is James that's going through this. However, I refuse to abandon my brothers and sisters in the convoy, and I'm going to be lobbying because of this unique case, as you really nailed it here, you know, how this can impact for their freedoms to hopefully be restored. And I can't, you know, I can only pray to God that folks that have been charged wake up someday in the future, and our governments between the United States and Canada can start the process of recognizing that lawfare has been conducted and political prosecution has been conducted, and call a spade for a spade, and make things right. And that's the only way I'm ever going to be able to come home.
Yeah, so
Okay,
some of these,
I'm in a situation where I cannot return back to Canada. I had to leave my wife. She had to go and do her thing, and I'm not talking about leaving. You know, we're still madly in love with each other. We talk on the phone every day. We miss each other deeply. But you know, this is my fight at this present time, where she's back at home with family and friends, and I'm you know, in a situation where all of that, you have to be willing to walk away from all of that, and you know, the price of freedom is not free.
that's
I've
for
paid
sure.
for it dearly. I've paid for it dearly, and I'm
Yeah.
still paying.
And some of the people who have come to kind of surround you down there. I see that you've got just on your Twitter feed here posts from like General Mike Flynn. You and I guess you just went down there and had somebody sign your flag. You want to talk about that?
Yeah,
Let me just turn the audio down there. Yeah. So
yeah.
what's
So
this
that book right there is powerful. Oh boy, that book is powerful. And you can pause that right there. That's a quote that I'm gonna go down on. You know, in regards to, I refuse to be a pawn when it comes to my freedom. But pause that book right there. Read, you know, just dial it back a bit if you can, Rick.
right there? Do you want me to bring it back?
Just to the book cover. Keep going, keep going, keep going. Right there,
That one?
right there. Yeah. You can Google that book, and boy, oh boy, it's a evidence bomb of facts and information, and so on and so forth. And I'm just going to let everybody do their own due diligence. I've been just starting to get caught up on some of the things that are happening with respects to military operations that have been taking place, and you know, I'm not an expert. I'm a trucker, and I can't speak on all this stuff. However, it's very interesting when the generals start surrounding me and protecting me.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
This is a
Anybody
book
questions
by
the protection?
Major General Paul Vallely.
Yes, who I got to meet in person, and he signed the Freedom Convoy flag. And also, this was a really nice individual that during the convoy, as well as General Flynn, were helping us out with the Gestapo, as we like to call it in Ottawa, and you know, making sure that nobody got hurt, and that we were successful in negotiating with the police, and so on and so forth. So they were working behind the scenes via phone, and had all the maps and everything else, and were, you know, they were concerned for our safety, and you know, we're very appreciative of the support that we got from the generals during the convoy. And I certainly am very supportive, and you know, very humbled and filled with respect and honor that they are coming to my defense, and taking a very close look at this unprecedented legal battle that I find myself in. And they're also one phone call away from President Trump.
So Major Vallely has been very helpful to you. You got to meet him in person, and you say that he was also helpful during the actual Freedom Convoy. I think I've heard that before
Like an
as well.
advisor,
From
yeah, like
Norman
an
Travers.
advisor. You know, he gave us advice, as General Flynn also gave us advice.
Mm-hmm.
So you know, it was a big team. If for those that don't know, there was a lot of moving parts, a lot of people behind the scenes that you don't even know about. Hundreds of organizers and folks, you'll never hear their names ever, but there was hundreds of people behind the scene. Hundreds.
And you're getting a lot of support from the Trump administration. In fact, I just heard Jeffrey Rath yesterday in a speech out in Alberta say that, you know, they went down, they've had meetings with the Trump administration. This is like the Alberta 51 crowd, right? And saying, you know, they're very supportive as well. So there's a lot of support flowing northward from for these groups, and for yourself from the Trump administration. not just from General Valley, but I think there's a whole network, a whole team down there. I think you mentioned as well Todd Callender.
Yes, Todd Callender is a high profile. He's way up there. A major international lawyer, and he phoned me. Just, hey, I'm Todd Callender, and I'm like, okay, who are you? Right, and got talking, and I was like, my eyes just kept getting bigger and bigger and bigger.
He's
And
a lawyer. He's a very rich business person. He owns the social media platform Cloud Hub. He's very active politically. He has taken a great deal of interest in Canada, certainly since the Freedom Convoy, and certainly since this whole thing with the ostrich farm. He's been involved in that to some degree, online as well. And I guess you're also getting support from. Didn't you say you've had contact with RFK Jr. and Kyle Kemper as well, Justin Trudeau's brother?
Well, Kyle Kemper and I have been going back and forth talking since the convoy, and there's a funny story here. Is that so? Kyle Kemper's Justin Trudeau's brother, right? So for those that don't know who Kyle is, and my wife made a point of reaching out to Kyle and said, "You and James have to talk." So that was right there in the convoy. I'm like, Justin Trudeau's brother. I'd never heard of him before. And I'm like, what are you doing, babe? I'm not going to talk to Justin Trudeau's brother. What? All right. So my hair was up right against the wall. I had no idea who he was. However, after talking with this man, the first time was about an hour and a half. And then the second conversation, Kyle and I talked for half a day nonstop on the phone, half a day, as he's driving across from California to Florida. And we really got to know each other as brothers. And boy, oh boy, he's a really good guy. He's a total polar opposite of Justin Trudeau. And he's a Canadian true. And he's also a dual citizen with USA. He's decided it's better opportunities for him and his family to be down there than being up here in Canada. So long story short is he's also in the activist, the political movement, obviously, with his upbringing. So he hitches a ride with JFK Jr. as he's, with Kennedy there, as he's, they call him Bobby, as he's running for president.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, this is before he joined forces with President Trump. So I get a phone call because I've been talking with this really good dude named Kyle multiple times. And Kyle phones me up and says, James, I got a deal for you. I need you to drive Kennedy's bus across and organize a bunch of convoys and so on and so forth, and drive Kennedy's big, huge motorhome because it requires a special license. And he says, but you're going to have to be hired under the political campaign aspect. And so he wanted this right away. However, reality kicked in because in order for us to get the proper visa, it would have taken about 6 weeks to maybe a month, but 6 weeks was a ballpark, and he needed somebody right away within 2 weeks. So I was really, really honored that I was chosen to drive Mr. Kennedy around, and I've grown to do some research on this man and really stand behind what he's doing, make America healthy again. It would be just so refreshing if that was if he was in charge of making the world healthy again, because I've always questioned a lot of our big pharma and how money plays against our health. Prime example is that we've got cures for cancer sitting in the University of Edmonton, and they're generic drugs. Big pharma won't make a dime off of these things. So they've said, no, we're not going to proceed forward. And I always thought, how strange would our health government situation be when they have drugs that could actually work, proven to work, save lives, cost pennies on the dollar to make, and they won't proceed to move those forward. that's a red clue right there that we're not in a healthy situation. We're in a political, financial driven situation. And here Kennedy, I think he's in the right zone at the right time, with the right level of experience and knowledge
Yeah.
and heart to
We
to
are
take
kind of
care of
getting
the
off
mandate.
on other stuff here.
So
Maybe we can kind of bring it back over to your.
I mean, good people.
Yeah.
Good people are in my corner, to say the least. So
Yeah, some pretty powerful people, actually. That's pretty impressive. The all-star lineup of your angels, your all-star angel lineup. How's that?
well, I think it's needed, as well as understanding that I'm really fighting for my brothers and sisters as well. I really want to see closure, and I want to see some, resemblance of a fair legal system in Canada that can go back in time and recognize that, you know what, this convoy wasn't what the media portrayed it to be. It wasn't what Trudeau portrayed it to be. Here's the historical facts. It was peaceful. It was lawful. It was loving. And it stood up on the right side of the law and the right side of the history. And those individuals that got swept up in all of this, that got charged, should rightfully be allowed to have their lives restored.
Do you think it's appropriate for U.S. politicians or generals from the United States to be involved at all in a political protest on Parliament Hill?
This was a global protest.
Well,
okay,
it was the
this was a
Canadian
global
Freedom
attack.
Convoy protest.
Well, it also sparked into a U.S. freedom.
And you were accused of wanting to overthrow the government, and you have now a U.S. general advising you and reporting back directly to President Trump, who was at the time not in power, as I recall, but
Correct. Yeah, he was campaigning.
But certainly you had influence there from the U.S. side and a U.S. general and actually a network of them.
Generals.
Yeah. Pretty extensive.
Well, it is. It's going to be talked about for decades to follow. I'm pretty sure this whole Freedom Convoy and now also the whole COVID file, which is unprecedented in nature, an attack on humanity. And you've got the left and the right, and somewhere in the middle is the truth.
Yeah, you can't see the chats because they don't flow through here, James. But I have people I think who would like to actually speak to you. Would you like to? If I send you a link to the phone system, would you like to take some phone calls from the public tonight and from the viewers?
You know what? I'm all for this. I'm all for talking to. I've been on your show before, and you got some pretty good. You brought some pretty good followers. They're mixed, and I know the demographics, mostly out in Toronto area there. But understand, I did a couple of convoys in Toronto before the big one, and whatever.
And then we'll see if we can get some people to call in, I guess. So, guys, if you want to call in, just give me a moment here, and I'll get the system set up. Let me just get James the link.
I mean, if they're going to attack me, we're gonna shut them down because I'm done with it.
Okay.
So I've got a good comment to make that if it's hate based.
Yeah, I don't really control who calls in, but we can always hang up.
Well,
there is that. Let me just.
I say no comment. If I say no comment, because I'm sick of it. I'm sick of the death threats. I'm sick of the crap. And I've always been saying this over and over and over, is that it's up to all of us right now to come together to recognize that we're not perfect human beings. We don't always have all the right facts.
Yeah.
And there's been a lot of emotional aspects that have impacted our lives, and we're all growing and maturing and trying to find our path forward in all of this together. And we've also been victims of misinformation and disinformation, which has created a lot of division, a lot of unnecessary conflict. And, you know,
You might want to.
we've got to stop
I
it.
refuse. I'm not growing up. I'm not doing
I'm
it.
with you.
You can.
I
It's
wish,
in.
you know, these things here keep popping up called gray hair. And, you know, the level of stress that I'm under, I tell you.
Check the. I'll tell you what. You check your email. That's going to give you the link to the other window to go into, so that you'll be able to hear the callers. You'll need
Oh,
to
I
hang
can't.
up.
If I go away from the screen, I'm worried that I'll lose you. So I have to go to an email.
Yeah, it's just a different link because I can't run the phone system through this.
So do I? Am I going to stay on here, or am I going to?
Well,
what do I do?
click. You have to actually jump off this and then just sign in on the other one that I just emailed to you, and then I'll let you in on the other window, and then you'll be able to hear the phone calls, and they'll be able to hear you as well. Otherwise, it's just one-way audio. It's complicated. I hate it, but this is the way we have to do it if we're going to do this. So if you don't mind, you can do that. And I'll just run the promo with the phone number for people to call while you do that to get you a little bit of time. Oh, there we go. You're already in there. Well, that was way too easy, James. I can't hear you. Your audio is muted. Unmute you. I can't hear you. I'm going to run the promo here, folks, while we get James set up on the other system. So just give me a moment and I'll run the numbers. You guys know the drill. You call in all the time. So here we go. Here's the number to call tonight to join the conversation. Okay, Mavericks, it's call-in time. Join the conversation. Call 1-647-734-4220. Then enter the PIN number 860-075-764, followed by the pound sign. Exercise your right to free speech. Call 1-647-734-4220. Then enter the PIN number 860-075-764, followed by the pound sign. Call 1-647-734-4220. Then enter the PIN number 860-075-764, followed by the pound sign. Maverick News. Call now. The world is watching and listening to you. Okay. Here we go. All right. Okay. We're back, folks, and James is waiting in the back, and we have our first caller, I believe, on the line with him. So let me get this up on the screen, and I have no idea who it is that's calling, but because I don't know. Who's on the line with us? Are we there? Hang on, I got to admit you. First caller in. There we go. We're up on the screen now. Who's there with us tonight? I don't know. Who's this? Oh, hang on a second here. Let me bring this up. There we go. Okay, so it's Jay. It's Jay who's on the line. Now we're up and everybody can hear everybody. Okay.
All right. So I just want to say this. So James, for me, what Canada Unity represented to me was you worked hard and brought a lot of people together. I worked my ass for Canada Unity, and I'm just going to say this. I felt betrayed because you didn't even give me the opportunity or call me, and you let everything slide with peace, man. That's all I got to say. And as for your situation, I do support you. life throws us curves sometimes, and sometimes people need to readjust to things, and a lot of things happen that I don't agree with, that you don't agree with. But a lot of things were said about me that you were informed, which was complete lies. And there was a lot of things that I was informed that were complete lies on both sides. So at some point, I hope that, for the sake of Canada unity, which I love so much still to this day, I think that it would be great for everybody to show a unified front, because we did all come together as Canadians to fight for freedom. And it wasn't just what you were doing or the convoy. It was people who were doing it for the 2 years before, protesting on the streets, fighting against the government, organizing protests. Like a lot of us came together and we just got frustrated with it, right? So it was a historic event that all of us participated in. All of us had our role. For me, it was, Canada Unity was being hacked, James. I saved it from being hacked, man. And I loved that platform. And I had to do what I had to do, and I apologize for what I did. I'll just say that straight up. But, it is what it is. But I think moving forward, if we could all of us show a strength and unity to help each other out, we should do that for the sake of either moving Alberta forward as a sovereign nation, because I live in Alberta now, or trying to rebuild the national unity of Canada, one or the other, right? But at the end of the day, people are being persecuted like yourself over political warfare. And we've seen this for a while now with Pat, Tamara, Chris, everybody. Even those of us who didn't get charged, James, they hit us financially, or they smear campaigned us. It's so bad that, I can't even get a job. You type my name into Google and it's horrible. And it's not true. Just because we stood in the name for freedom and unity of this country. That was the common thing we all did, right? And still to this day, I just want to ask you something, James. Still to this day, you and I both know, like, I'm actually ordained minister as of 2 days ago, just so you know that. But remember the day that we were walking down Slater, and I found that little charm, and it said Angel right in front of 66 Slater, the main government building. And I said to you that if that's not a sign of God, I don't know what is. And I still remember that to this day. So, I think with the infiltration by government that's divided the whole movement, the people who actually worked hard to get us to Ottawa, you know what I mean? And a disinformation campaign that just continues. So, I'll try to push your stuff out to make sure that, it's a fair game, because you're being persecuted. It is political warfare. I don't agree with what they're doing to you, what they're trying to do to Pat and Chris and everybody else. I think that's complete nonsense. But I just wanted to let you know where I stand, and no hard feelings, and just I hope that, we all have, we have to show some leadership, and and I think you can agree that a lot of stupidity has went on since the convoy from all over, every part of different things. And I think one thing that working with you and others, when we were a team, we did have some structure and leadership, and it just seemed to fall apart, because I think we were just stressed out with what they were doing. A lot of things that people in the public don't hear about that was happening to us personally by the system. It just drove us to the ground, right? So I don't know. That's all I got to say about that.
Okay, and Jay, you're welcome to stay on the line a little bit longer, but I've got a whole bunch of people calling in here. This is a big night, so we need to let some other people kind of weigh in.
Can I respond to?
Yes, sir. Go ahead there quickly.
Can I respond
James,
to Jay,
and then we'll get these other people.
Can I respond to Jay, please?
Yeah,
First off, Jason, I want to sincerely thank you from the bottom of my heart from saving all of us in Canada. Your ability in servers and security and cybersecurity, and very few people know the reality of the attacks that were happening globally on trying to get that data that we were entrusted as Canadian patriots and citizens to do the right thing with that data. And if it wasn't for your skills, we would have faced a similar outcome to being hacked like Gifts and Go, and I couldn't have lived with myself if all of those names, the hundreds of thousands of Canadians that supported the MOU, had their names been released to the public. So I thank you deeply for being able to protect that data still to this day. And I don't think I ever thanked you for that. So I hope that you hear from my heart that I'm deeply in your debt and gratitude for what you were able to do. And I also want to just say that time heals wounds sometimes. And, we've got to come together on our own quest of truth and reconciliation and forgiveness, which this entire movement has been impacted all across the board. Healing starts with I'm sorry.
And we have some other callers on the line. I'm not sure where to
So-
start because we have 1, 2, 3, 4 people.
Best of luck, Jason, with your ventures. Okay.
Okay, who wants to weigh in here first?
Yeah, I do.
Okay, one at a time. Top.
Somebody go.
You go ahead.
Yeah, I just say, Rick, happy independence from British Terrorism Day.
Who's
The
this?
4th of July.
Tell us who you are, please.
I'm the voice of. I'm one of the Sons of Liberty, and I just want to say,
Sons of
this man's a
Liberty.
hero. This man is a hero. I'm American, but the Canadian truckers, they were a symbol not just in Canada but for the entire world.
Yeah. Can you
when
tell
they
us what
stood
your
up,
tell
and
us
they
your,
were
tell us your name, Son of Liberty? I recognize your voice. Can you not hear him, James?
No, I can barely hear you too. I was going good with Jay, and then as soon as all these screens started showing up, my volume just sort of went.
Something happened with your system there. You got low on my end too. Yeah.
Okay.
So, yeah, and I know that you hate Canada and you want it stalled to become the 51st state, and you love Trump because you called in before. So why don't you just acknowledge who you are?
No, I don't. This is Patrick Henry. I don't hate Canada. I love Canada.
Okay.
But what I hate is tyranny, and this man is a hero. I just want to say that the Canadian truckers were a symbol to the entire world of people who were willing to stand up for liberty and for freedom, and they inspired people all around the world. And I think your attack on this man, you've been interviewing him, you've been trying to snipe on him and snipe on his reputation, I think is not journalism. I think you're a propagandist.
Okay, see ya. Bye. I didn't attack anybody. Who else wants to go?
Sure, I'll go.
Yeah, go ahead. Who's this?
Can you hear? Hi, this is Bridget. So, James, are you willing to apologize to Bridget tonight?
No.
No. Well, didn't you just say that you were willing to start by repairing relationships with an apology? I've listened to you tonight, and everything I heard I mean, you have to laugh at you being on here because you say one thing and then you say another. You say you have an opinion, and then you say, no, this is fact, but then you report opinion because you can't back up what you say. So, James, put it out here right now. You said you were willing to apologize and build relationships, so let's do it. I'm here. Are you willing to apologize for the things you've said about me?
How about all the things that you've said about me, Bridget? And
I didn't ask that.
Kept quiet.
I didn't ask that. You said right here. So are you a man of your word that you wanted to apologize?
Yeah, Rick,
and you wanted to
this is not a conversation
repair
that I'm willing to take part on.
this?
Okay.
Because you know that you
No comment.
infiltrated the convoy with your American friends in order to lead the Canadian government in a certain way. You just said that on this show. Thank you so much. And you're in the position you're in because of the things you've done.
Okay, thank you, Bridget.
That
Rick,
is my
we're done.
opinion.
Okay.
Yeah,
Who
you're entitled to an opinion.
Who else is on the line with us tonight?
Take a hike.
Yeah, it's
You wanna
Lori here,
exit
Rick. How
out,
Hey,
you doing?
Lori.
Rick?
How you doing?
Rick?
Yeah.
Do you want to exit
Yeah,
out, please?
Yeah, sure.
I got
Thanks for
two
calling in
questions.
tonight, Bridget. I appreciate you calling, and to honor, just to be respectful to James, and I appreciate what you've said, and we gave you your voice too, so I will move on.
I appreciate that, Rick. Thank you. And
Thank you.
I did try to mend the fence, as we can
No,
see.
you haven't.
Bye-bye.
No, you haven't, Bridget.
Okay, Lori, the
Go
floor.
on my TikTok and you'll see, and also on my Facebook page, you will see a very recent comment. And if you're, like Bridget, you have attacked everybody, Chris, Tamara, myself,
Okay,
others.
well, James,
And
yeah.
you know what? I have not attacked back.
Okay, Lori,
But if you're
are
going
you
to
still
come
there?
on here and want an apology for all
Yeah,
the
I'm still here,
slander
Rick.
Okay.
and allegations that you have caused on all of us, go get bent. Goodbye. I'm done with that one, Rick.
Okay, and Lori, go ahead. The floor is yours.
Yeah, I'll take a swing here, Rick. I just wanted to ask James, what gives him the right to park a transport truck on Wellington Street and blow his air horn?
He didn't park his truck on Wellington Street, just to correct you right there, and he didn't blow anybody's air horn.
Well, he was part of the group that did.
But he didn't do it.
Maybe you forgot to read the code of conduct.
Pardon me?
I suggest you do that before you come on and make allegations that you can't.
No,
back
James,
up,
James,
because
James.
the code of conduct clearly says
Okay,
that
well,
we were all there
James-
on our own accord.
James-
Period. Full stop. So
James,
each
are
individual
you
was
not a
responsible
supporter
for
of
their
the,
own
of the
actions.
convoy?
So the convoy, let me answer his question, James. Let me ask you, so you're saying that it's not okay for us to go down and protest in our capital city?
No, I asked you what gives you the right to do that.
Under our charter of
Well,
our
first I
charter
didn't.
of rights states that
You
we're
got
allowed
a
we're
right
allowed
to park on
protest.
Wellington Street, and you have a right to park on Wellington Street in Ottawa and blow your air horn.
Yes, we did,
Well,
and you can
let's be
back that up
specific
by
here,
No,
the
you
caller.
don't.
I didn't.
You certainly
yes,
don't.
We did. The OPP
You-
even announced before we got into Ontario,
broke
made a
the
public
law.
announcement, and no, we
I
did
didn't
not.
break the
If
law.
we did, how come none of us are gone to jail then if we broke the law?
Well, you should have been in jail.
That's your opinion.
Okay, so is it, let me ask you something. I respect your opinion, but let me ask you something. So do you think it's fair?
Don't you respect
that
the laws of the country?
No, let me ask you something, because you have an opinion on it, and you say that we should be arrested, which is fine. I respect your opinion, but I have a question for you.
No, I'm asking the questions here.
No,
I
we
asked
answered
the
it.
question of you guys.
We just and we just answered it. We had the right under the Charter of Rights of Canada to go down there and protest with our trucks. And
No, you don't have a
that-
right to weaponize it. You don't have a right to weaponize the truck and
Nobody
weaponize an
weaponized
air
the truck.
horn and
Nobody
impede
weaponized anything.
You do not have a right to impede my usage of Wellington Street in Ottawa.
Okay.
I'm a Canadian.
And is it okay
I have
for any other
every right to
protest-
drive past the Parliament
any
buildings the
other
same as you
protest-
do.
Is any other protest in Ottawa, like the Palestinian ones right now, who are hating on
Did
the
you get a
Jewish community,
permit? Did you
blowing
get a
horns?
permit?
Yes, we did have a permit. Yes, we did.
You didn't have a permit to park the trucks on
Yes, we
Wellington
had
Street.
it. Yes, we did. And the cops are the ones who guided our trucks into Ottawa, as a matter of fact. And that is publicly available on the court files.
So who's answering the questions on behalf of James here?
I'm the
I'd
Ontario
like
organizer
to,
who
but
helped
you
bring
two
the
seem
trucks
to be having
into
a good
Ottawa.
conversation, and I've already made my statement to you, sir, is that you're accusing me of doing something
I didn't
that
accuse
I,
anybody
didn't
of
do.
anything. I
You
didn't
know,
accuse
you can
anybody
say
of
what
anything.
gives rights to all of the participants, but when you say me as a person, then I've already responded your answer where no, I did not park a truck on Wellington, and no, I
Well,
did not
you're
honk the horn.
you're either a leader or an influencer or
And as the leader who assisted in working with hundreds of leaders that you don't even know about.
Yeah, everybody's a
That
leader.
also made
And
sure that there was
nobody's
a
a
code
leader.
of. Are you going to let me talk, or are you going to overtalk me?
Go ahead.
Thank you. There was a code of conduct, sir, that clearly stated follow the laws, respect the authorities, respect each other, clean up the city of Ottawa, and also feed the homeless. And what did happen was that we had strategic plans in place with the OPP, with the Ottawa Police Services, where we would park on the side streets. And the whole history of will you take a parking ticket for freedom was thrown right out the door. Parking ticket meaning on the side streets was thrown right out the door by the local police directing us, and we had no choice but to go where the police put us. Had the police followed the plans that were in place for months, nobody would have been on Wellington. They would have been on the side streets for miles and miles.
Okay, here's the second question.
So that was
you've
not
dragged this. You've
me
dragged it
as
out
a
long
leader.
enough. You've dragged it out long enough with your excuses. Here's the second question. How long do you think you guys would have lasted in Ottawa if Donald Trump had been the Prime Minister of Canada?
We would never have had these awful mandates probably put on. He would have communicated. We would never have had a convoy. We wouldn't have needed one.
Yeah, there would have been.
You wouldn't have needed one, yeah, for sure.
Actually, James,
that's my opinion. Okay, so if we're going to get into opinions,
and no,
it's my opinion that
this is the other
good question. I've never heard that question before. So,
if I may, this is a question I have for you. You're down there looking for more freedom and asylum, and you're saying that you wouldn't have had these problems, and yet, the main reason that you say that you're in the position you're in is because of the vaccine mandates for truckers, and yet the U.S. government at the time had imposed mandates. It was the U.S. side actually that was the biggest problem for you as a trucker going over the border. So the very mandate that you were protesting was a mandate that was in place because of the U.S. government, not the Canadian government. They were the ones preventing you from going to the States as much as the Canadian government.
So it was our federal government that was
the federal government imposed.
Let's be clear on this, Rick.
Laurie, am I incorrect on that? I don't think I am.
No, you're spot on there, Rick. That this was agreed to. In fact, I pointed that out to you.
Yes,
is that right. both sides shut down the border.
Yes. Yes, that's right.
And more than anything else, who was the big guy in the big play here was the United States.
Yeah. It's just that Trudeau implemented them at a date just before the U.S., but they were doing it in conjunction with each other. And it was
we're dealing with a Biden and Trudeau, two very much socialist-driven ideological isms.
Bring it up.
That were attacking against us.
Okay.
So,
you got to remember who was the president of the United States during the pandemic, and who was it?
Well, yeah, it was Trump.
For sure, it was Trump.
Yeah, it was.
I'll give you another one here, guys. You can just listen to this. Yeah. And during the convoy protest, I walked. I'm very close to the 401 highway. I'm in Eastern Ontario. I went out on very close to the highway, and I counted 107 trucks going past me in 10 minutes. So that's roughly 600 trucks an hour. So that tells me that all of those truckers were not in Ottawa protesting. There was no lines from Ottawa backed up to Sault Ste. Marie or backed up Highway 17 to North Bay. You guys were a small element that were out there to disturb. There was a separation element involved here too. And James, if you were in the United States, please stay there. Will you please?
You're entitled to your opinions. And I'll respect you for your opinion. So
go ahead. Take a swing, boy. Take a swing.
I don't need to. We've all suffered
So I wanna-
from.
Can
a
I
lot of
share something
disinformation
else
and,
is before we move on to our
Tell
next?
you what, boys,
Yeah.
I didn't suffer at all. I lived through the whole thing, and I'm just as happy as I was before. If
Perfect.
anything else, with the restrictions, maybe it brought my family a little closer together. We
Yeah, I'm
knuckled
glad.
down,
I'm happy for you.
well, don't interrupt me, but no, we knuckled down. We made sure we were making contact with each other. We looked after each other. We looked after neighbors. If people needed to get out and get groceries, it was a mandate that the government had to make. We were in an area where the medical research at that point in time was out on planet Mars. They didn't know what was going on. They made the best choices as far as I'm concerned. And you guys just went out there and you decided that you were on your own and you were going to disturb. And that's my opinion. I'll shut her down from here. Rick, you take it on.
Hey, Rick, can I comment now?
Yeah, sure. Go ahead.
All right. So a few things that this gentleman said. Okay, so you say that you complied, which is fine, and you know what, you shared your opinion. But this convoy was about people who lost their jobs, even government workers, health officials, even. I lost my restaurant, you know, because the government was forcing us to comply to a mandate that I just didn't believe in. And they were trying to make us believe that people were dropping like flies, and they were not dropping like flies. That was all a lie. And if you look today, okay, after what we did in Ottawa, there is no more mandates. Why is that? Because the truth came out about it. Even now, there's countries who have banned the vaccine. There are so many people who are dying and having major side effects of that vaccine. And we all knew this. We knew this beforehand. And it was the government who chose to manipulate the public and fear-mongering tactics.
No, I don't believe that for a minute. No, now you're reaching out. Now you're reaching out.
That's what they did. Because
you're projecting here now.
Let me finish.
No, you're going into outer space here.
Let me finish. I'll give you some examples. Let me finish.
You can give me all the examples you want. If you don't think that the government is operating on behalf of in the best interest of the people.
Was it in the best interest of the people
I believe it was.
To tell them that they can't get on a train, plane, and then all of a sudden go in a restaurant and the COVID shield's on and everybody can take off their masks you know what I mean? It made no sense. Crazy. It was all a lie. And don't forget all the people who lost their jobs, lost their businesses, and got wrongfully charged. And some people, the way they were assaulted through it, kids that were wrestled to the ground by the police just for skating outside. Tell me that wasn't fascism. And a lot of people will sit there and say, well, no, everybody complied.
Okay, I'll tell you here right now. When the police tell you to go home,
let's
shouldn't you go home?
Yeah, we need to move on though, because we have other callers.
One request here, Rick.
Yeah.
One question, one comment. There's other guests that want to have a say here, because I wasn't anticipating
I'm done
being
here,
on the
Rick.
phone here. So
okay.
Rick,
thank you, sir, for your
it
comment.
It sounds like this is a pretty one-sided argument, and
no, it's not one-sided. You had your opinion, and I thank you for it. So that's your opinion again.
I'm gone.
So when the Nazis tell you to get in the concentration camp, you should just go, huh?
Thank you for calling in, Laurie.
Who's next, Rick?
I don't know.
According to that guy, when the Nazis tell you to get in the concentration camp, you should just go. There is plenty of evidence.
No, that's not what Laurie's saying.
You off once, I'll keep kicking you off too, because you're annoying. And I'm just tired of that guy because he's called in before.
Who's next?
I don't know. Who's next?
Do we have a question regarding claiming political asylum and persecution and lawfare? Because that's what we're on the show to talk about.
Bring us some sanity and some civil discourse.
Somebody.
Well, I understand. I understand Laurie's point of view. In the sense of following law, Canadian law. And I live in Canada and we follow Canadian law. And I can understand the government's response to an overwhelming flow of people coming in to express their frustration and anger toward limiting of their freedoms to live, to work, to go about their day, based on the information at that time. And it was kind of loosey-goosey, kind of flimsy as to the safety of this vaccination. And I myself declined. I didn't want to take it because it was experimental. And another person made the point of the media had a big impact at that time in fear mongering. Oh, just it was disgraceful. So, and the combination of this language that one of the chatters, Rick, that you have in your chat, Norfa made a good point as to when the convoy was rising up and coming through. And believe me, I felt absolutely patriotic when I saw this happening and all this hope and pride when I when I would see this on television and people coming together where certain groups, not all, certainly not all in Canada, but certain people or groups where, to begin with, this FU language, this FU signage, these FU posters wasn't going to invite the government that we were looking to help us understand what was happening and to listen. And unfortunately, from what I saw, maybe you saw something different, Rick, or because you probably you covered this much more than I, but I was just hoping that there would have been talks between our representatives and the truckers as opposed to the police and the truckers to alleviate this uncertainty, tension, and frustration.
Can I respond?
Sure.
Thank you for your comment, and I appreciate what you were saying, and I agree wholeheartedly with a lot of it. It was never my intention to see the F. Trudeau aspects, especially when I'm the founder of Canada Unity. So that's something that we never, I don't believe, posted on our platforms.
Yeah.
However, folks are allowed their expression, their freedom of speech, and who am I to tell another Canadian what you can or cannot say? And a sign is an expression of speech. So we're all entitled to our opinions. I deeply value that as a Canadian.
And James, you know what? I was just going to say,
we don't have to agree with each other's opinions. And at the end of the day, I think that what a lot of folks have been led astray is the mass majority of those that were involved in the convoy were not anti-vaccine. However, they were anti-coerced. And the majority of the truckers were not okay with being coerced into taking something or doing something. We had all reached our limit, and said enough is enough. We've got these things called laws. We've got a government that said, and in quote, I know that we're going to be violating your rights, but we're going to do it anyways. So, we all went through some very trying times, and it's unfortunate that,
it was.
We got put into that situation. And I think the biggest task that we have moving forward today is recognizing that everybody has opinions and everybody's entitled to their rights. And where do we go forward with respects to the lawfare and the judicial system in our country that is still conducting and playing, they're not playing fair.
I want to, and James, I want to agree. I agree with you. I agree with you moving forward, but without breaking up the country, without breaking up my country, without breaking up the the sovereignty and the Constitution and Charter of Rights here in Canada. I'm willing to do that, but I don't want to see this. I don't want to see moving forward as a result of everything from the convoy or the Freedom Convoy up to present day. I don't want to see the breakup of this country.
Do you understand, Sharon, that if James is successful with his application for political asylum, that his case may become a linchpin, a key component of doing exactly that, breaking up the country?
I don't agree on that, Rick.
Oh no, that's exactly what we were talking about before, James. Because
no,
this
you
gives
didn't say
yes,
you just added
absolutely
that
it is.
at the very end here, Rick. So
Yeah,
I need to
because
back that up. You have to replay what you said.
Just a minute, James. Wait, James. Wait.
Oh yes,
Go ahead, Rick.
James. Because
It
Just
won't
listen.
break up the country.
Because if I
Wait,
may,
wait, listen.
you were in Ottawa taking direction along with Norman Traversy from Major General Paul Vallely and other U.S. generals on the U.S. side, directing a Canadian political protest. You say that you're being politically persecuted and prosecuted for political reasons, and yet what you were involved with, and respectfully, and you're my friend, but that is exactly how the government is going to view that. And certainly through intelligence, I'm certain they must have been aware, but probably afraid to speak up about the involvement of U.S. military generals directing the biggest.
Not directing.
Oh yes, I have the audio of it, sir, from previous interviews.
Not directing,
directing and advising and telling and
directing.
And
there's a big difference between direct
advising and directing from his base of operation in Montana.
They're two separate words,
the convoy
Rick.
People where
I love you, brother, but directing and advising are much different
I'll
words.
run the clip.
You know,
I'll run
big
it.
difference.
I've got it. I've got Norman Traversy talking about it.
That's Norman Traversy. That's fine.
Norman said that. That's not true.
No,
that's not true. What Norman said. No,
I've got the
no,
clip,
that's not true.
And Major Vallely was.
I just met with the Major General.
Yes, I know. That's what I'm getting at James. Whether you realize it or not, that's how the government is going to perceive and does perceive what you've been involved in.
What was going on, Rick?
During that pivotal
time when we've got the police beating on Canadian
citizens, Major Vallely is advocating
we've got tear
gas
in
his
Substack. We've got all sorts of stuff happening.
Wait a second. I'd let you speak, and I'm going to let me explain. Major Vallely is constantly talking about Canada becoming the 51st state. He is engaged politically on the Canadian side extensively, trying to make this happen and advising President Trump in that regard. He writes on his Substack about it all the time. He has, for instance, I don't know if I've got it up here or not. Maybe I can find it. He has Canada being referred to as an orphan of the United States. They don't believe they're promoting Canada as being part of the United States. The Canada doesn't really exist. They are part of that entire narrative. He wrote an entire essay. He wrote a plan on it that he submitted to the U.S. government to implement it. I've got the article right here. Let me show it to you. And I've asked him about it on this program. He talks about it. He says the key to everything is to convince Canadians that Canada is not a real country. That's what he's saying. And that's exactly what's going on constantly. And you're down there getting the guy to sign your flag, telling me that you're not a separatist, that you're not involved in wanting to break up the country, that you want to hold the country together. But all these people that you're associating with, all the people you're talking about are doing exactly that. They are 51st staters on the U.S. side. You're in bed with them. They're the ones supporting you. Even Todd Callender. There's the article, one of the main articles from Major General Vallely himself, Canada, America's orphan cousin. He's talking about Canada actually being they're supposed to be part of the United States already. That's the way he views it. That Canada isn't a real country. Norman Traversy talks about it all the time. He also has submitted a quo-random to the Canadian government calling basically for the overthrow of the Canadian government. And these are people that you're associating with down there during the Freedom Convoy. No wonder the government thinks that you're trying to overthrow the government. Of course they are, because they know that you're hanging out with these guys, James, whether you acknowledge it or not.
Where is freedom of speech allowed?
Well, where is you're worried? You guys are worried about Chinese foreign interference. There's nothing. This is blatant, outright, straight up foreign interference from U.S. military generals involved in the largest Canadian political protest in history, where the government sees it as an existential threat to the country, for crying out loud. Military generals. Now we have the president of the United States saying, yes, I want Canada to be the 51st state. He's literally saying it repeatedly. And people like you are sitting there saying, well, it's not me. I'm not doing anything. But you're the one who put forward the MOU that the government viewed that way. You're the one associating with Norman Traversy, who's been constantly trying to do this. There's an ongoing campaign to do it. You're the one going down there to meet with General Vallely in person, this past week, getting him to sign your half Canada, half USA flag with and saying basically thank you, or whatever he wrote on your flag, the Canada USA freedom flag. You're the one seeking political asylum in the United States. Your case would be precedent setting. Your case would then undermine safe third country status, that whole agreement. It would create a diplomatic crisis between the United States and Canada. It would plunge Canada into a dark hole as far as the United States is concerned, because we would then be viewed as a tyrannical, authoritarian state, which you have acknowledged, which would be potentially a national security threat to the United States if they acknowledge your asylum claim, which then would give further justification to the United States to potentially annex us for national security reasons. That would be the predicate or the excuse, basically one of the excuses to do that. And there are all these other things that are falling in place, like the fake fentanyl crisis that Trump is talking about on the border, perpetrated by the Chinese, which is not true, because there was I think it was the Manhattan Institute or whatever the name of the organization was, just this past week came out with another study saying that it's not true. We know it's not true, but Trump keeps using that along with his generals to try to justify some sort of annexation or even invasion of Canada, if it comes to that, unless he gets whatever he wants, which is just a war on liberalism up here in Canada. And he's got no business, frankly, James, trying to dictate our politics on our side. That's up to us, because we are a sovereign nation. So don't sit there, sir, and tell me
it's okay for our government to dictate to their government.
No, our government doesn't dictate to their government. Our government,
I think
tries
the
to
word
appease them
slinging
all the
is going
time.
back and forth.
Excuse me, what?
Between the two governments, and that's pretty evident.
And I'm sorry, what was that? How do we dictate to them?
The word slinging that has been going back and forth.
Word slinging. Trump is nothing but an insult king. Carney sat there and basically said, well, diplomatically, thank you, sir, but we will never be the 51st state. And that's about as bad as it ever got. Although, frankly, we're kind of at the point where I wouldn't blame Carney at all if he told Trump to go F himself. Somebody probably should, because the guy's full of shit and he makes up all kinds of numbers and lies all the time. Making up numbers about the freaking trade deficit. We subsidize Canada to the tune of $30 billion a year. And it's not true. They give us zero. They don't subsidize us at all. It's just a freaking lie. The guy's a perpetual liar. If he opens his mouth, he's probably lying 90% of the time. He's exaggerates. He can't even keep his lies straight. He makes them number. Canada doesn't sling anything at the United States. We're very careful. We're very diplomatic. Carney's being very diplomatic.
We didn't pick this fight. We didn't take this fight.
No, we did not at all. And I'm tired of people saying that we did. That also is a lie. It's like an abusive relationship where the abused wife is blamed for the husband punching her in the face. It's just
James,
not
that's what
true.
shocked me, James. James, I was just, that's what kind of threw me. I liked Trump. And then when that's what threw me off. I wasn't understanding where, now, unless I'm not in the know, politically or deeper than that, but that threw me, because I wasn't expecting to hear him say Canada as a 51st state. Yes, many people here didn't like Trudeau, I'm sure, and he didn't like Trudeau. But that threw me. I didn't know where that was coming from.
Not only
Well, there's
that,
things
that
that
was
I don't
because
know, and
there
there's
was
things that you don't know, and there's
I
things that
can
Rick
answer
doesn't
that.
know, and there's also somewhere there's
and there's a
opinions,
lot
and
that I
somewhere
do
there's
know,
truth in the
James. There's a
middle.
lot that I do know, and a lot that I've
Well,
found out since
you
the
know what? There's
convoy.
two sides of the story, and I'm
Well,
also an
there's more than
Albertan, and
two.
you're from out east.
Yeah,
Okay,
there
and
you
I'm
go.
seeing
Yeah,
there's a big difference being out in Alberta and
Yeah.
seeing
Manitoba.
the how the federal government has treated us historically,
right.
and the opinions that come from that.
Sure.
And we've got a lot of emotions, and when people start raising their voice, I know that there's emotional connections and there's fear attached with that.
Yeah.
And I respect everybody's opinions and their emotions.
Then don't fucking lie.
In this
Stop lying
massive
about stuff.
conflict that's going on between our countries and globally.
Yeah, then don't lie. Keep it truthful. Nobody was murdered during the convoy. All right. So no, it wasn't. But you nodded and went along with it and acknowledged it. And you said that there were mercenaries, and you said that it was Ukrainian UN soldiers that came to beat up the freedom protesters, which is also, frankly, excuse my language, total fucking bullshit designed to smear Ukraine at a time when they're facing an existential crisis to their fucking country.
You know what, Rick?
Well, then
I'm sorry, but
now that's
I didn't come onto your show for this.
No, I know, and I didn't expect this
no,
either.
seriously,
James.
bro.
Seriously,
no,
bro.
Rick, I didn't come onto your show for this.
I didn't bring it on here.
Can I ask you a couple questions?
Yeah, you go ahead.
Go
ahead. Your turn.
I want to talk to James quick.
Go ahead.
James, I just have a couple questions for you. My name is Danny. I'm also known as Hungry Trucker on Twitter, and I run Freedom Accountability on Facebook. And I have some questions regarding why do you think that going to the United States is going to change anything for you?
Because I have no other options. I already mentioned that earlier. My other option was to go to a country that doesn't have extradition, and I could come down here to the States where I have an ally called President Trump, who has supported the truckers.
But as a Canadian, wouldn't you want to stand? As a Canadian, wouldn't you want to stand? Like,
no, because there's no standing.
Spokesman. You're the lead. You're a
no
leader. You know.
How much do folks not understand that there's lawfare being committed against us, and that political persecution is being committed against us?
You're still going to court, correct?
The verdict is already there.
So if you're found guilty in court and you have to go to jail, you go to jail. It doesn't matter what country you're in, unless you're in Panama. Weren't you just recently in Panama on a vacation with your wife?
I've been all over the world. I've been in 28
that?
countries. I'm an avid scuba diver, so big deal.
Okay. How much did you spend on that? I'm curious.
I make a very good living as a truck driver, and it's none of your flipping business.
I'm pretty sure you spent $10,000 going to Panama, and right now you've raised $3,000 off of Canadians with eBay.
What's the point? I can't work right now, sir.
What's the point? Well, you and I, you can work. You have been working. What are you talking about?
I can't. I'm in exile.
I'm a trucker too.
I'm in exile right now. By law, I cannot work.
You can't work in the United States?
Yeah, by law, I'm not allowed to work. That's the law. I don't make that up. That's the law. And I paid $10,000 of my own money because I work.
And I did not expect
that I would be in this situation where the lawyer said, you must act now. This is the time to do it. And we are filing the applications and starting the process.
So
I've
you
already
just
put
said you were a trucker.
$10,000 of my own dollars down, US, which is about 14 grand Canadian.
Well, you said you make very good money, so you should be able to pay for your own defense. What's that?
No, because I didn't have enough in savings because I've been digging myself out of the hole from all of the crap that I've been through. But I had enough to put the retainer down. And therefore, I am moving forward. I'm in exile and I'm not allowed to work.
Rick, you're aware, you have Jason on the line here. You're aware that he's the one who did the computer hack on you, right?
Yeah, and I also apologize to him, Danny.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah, that's between
so I just
Jason
want to talk to
I,
James.
And,
I don't have
you know, that's really that's between Jason and myself. And but where Jason did shine is that he protected the data. Period. Full stop.
He protected the data.
Yeah.
Oh, he's involved in computer hacking and threatening people.
Well,
Well, you were
Isn't that
also
cyber
doxing
terrorism?
everybody,
if
Danny.
Jason wanted to, he could have released hundreds of thousands of Canadians' names and phone
How
numbers
do I
and
know
personal
that he hasn't
information,
done
and
that? He
didn't.
was claiming to be the cybersecurity for Canada for the convoy, and he wasn't.
My
And
name
I
was,
was.
it was released.
I've
No,
made
he
my
was.
peace with Jason. I'm not here to fight with Jason, but I do
Well, he
want
was.
questions with you,
I think you could, Danny. I think you confused something here. I said I was the IT for Canada Unity, and you keep saying it's for the convoy, which is that's not. I never said that. It was for Canada Unity for my part of the convoy, and yet there was like almost 400,000 signatures that never got published to anybody ever. Okay, and I was the one who secured because it was us who had the mapping, Danny. It was us that had everybody on our website engaging to tell everybody where to go, where to get resources. It was us that did that. Okay, and
You
I
said
had
you
to
were
protect
head.
that.
You said you were head of cybersecurity. I've got the video for
Yeah,
the
I was
Canada
head of
convoy.
cyber for Canada Unity. Sorry,
You ran a
Jesus.
website. You ran a website.
Yeah,
He did.
I ran
It's
Canada Unity. I
misleading.
did.
You were misleading
I did.
people, Jason.
No.
No, he didn't.
You know what, Danny? You doxed everybody and you accused everybody of things all the time. That's what
You
you
said
do.
that
No,
you-
seriously, that's what you
said
do.
that you
That's
lost.
what you do.
Jason, you said that you lost your job because you had an edible business. You said that you lost it
No,
because
I
the
guys,
government
not
restricted.
say that,
You said
man.
that
Oh my
to
God,
be
you're
respectful,
so full
to be
of
respectful
shit,
to James,
Danny.
can we
Danny,
focus
this
on
isn't
that you
about
lost
me.
your business.
guys?
Danny, this isn't about me. This is
Okay,
about James.
I'll kick you both off.
I'm gonna be gone here, Rick.
if we
I'm
don't-
sorry,
if
but
we
it's
don't,
7:49. I thought we were gonna be on here from 5 to 6, and
No, it's a great
I'm sorry,
conversation.
but
I just have another
really
quick
am-
question for you, James. I just have another quick question regarding Pat King. And he said that you were the one that was running to the RCMP saying that Pat and Freedom George were outside, basically there to hijack the convoy.
Well, I've already come forward publicly and announced exactly that that is a misconception of misinformation that Pat has unfortunately got. And exactly what happened is that in the Arc Hotel, where the command center was for this whole operation, where I was at, police officers were coming and going on a very regular basis and wanting intel and wanting to know who's who and what's going on and so on and so forth. And Pat King was brought up to a group of us, of which case I said, hey, and that was just after the government and the media were attacking Pat with his comments of whatever he wanted to unalive a certain person. And we said, hey, we're not a part of that. There is some distance that we've all created, and I'm not associated with that. And I said, there's a bunch of rumors going on. I don't know what's going on, but I said I'm not associated with Pat anymore, and that he's not associated with the Canada Unity leadership group. And that was where I ended it. And I've never, ever, ever tried to get anybody arrested at all. Unlike that little Bridget girl that actually did make phone calls and get Tamara arrested, I've never done that once to anybody.
This little Bridget's convoy? Didn't
Oh, well, that's
Bridget,
her opinion.
wasn't she
That's her opinion, but
that's facts. That's
she's
fact. Weren't you crying at the POEC?
no, I was crying for other reasons, not to do with anything
Okay,
other
well,
than
they
living
even
through
they admitted.
PST.
Well, somebody dropped off there. You know, I'm going to share just one other new caller on here, but this is kind of a weird thing. Maybe you're not aware, James, and everybody else, but did you know that Todd Callender is claimed to have represented or worked with a company that may have been tied to his family's intellectual property that developed a needle-free mass vaccination device for which he completed FDA registration and conducted clinical trials in Cuba?
No.
Yeah. Oh yeah, he's talked
He's
about
on
it.
some big law. I know he was on some big law case that had to do with COVID and representing a lot of people. But other than that, I just met the man, and
it's kind of weird. It's very weird.
You know, I don't know enough.
Another weird thing. Kind of weird thing. Somebody else on the line. Did you want to ask James a question? Somebody just called in.
It's Laura here again. I just it just kind of breaks me up that
Folks, I
you
gotta
guys
go.
weren't.
Rick, I'm sorry, but I'm done with all the calls. I've really got to
Oh,
go.
yeah.
This is way
Oh, you
past
are.
my
Yeah. Okay.
schedule,
Well,
and I'm sorry, but I'm having to say thank you, everybody. However, this is the end of the interview. That was way over length, and
Well-
good night, everybody. God bless.
And
Thank you,
James,
Rick, for bringing me on your show.
listen, thank you for
It
coming
will
on.
be,
And
so
thank
I respectfully, I have to go.
and respectfully
Okay.
thank you for answering the hard questions.
Yeah. Thank you,
And
James.
You
we,
know,
we do
I
appreciate
wish
it.
everybody the best. I really do, and I sincerely hope that somewhere along the way we can find our path forward to truth.
Do you want
I'm
to
still
do you,
on
do you
the
want to
wish you
path.
well. Yeah.
do you
I'm
want to tell
still on
people
the
about
path
your
of trying to
I'll
find
put your give
truth.
send go up if you want to tell people how to do that.
I would appreciate that.
Hang on a
I
second here.
would
Let me find your
greatly,
give
'cause I
send
think
go.
there's other folks out there that
Put it on
are.
the screen for you. There it is there. Okay.
I did put 10,000 USD, which is about 14,000 of my own money.
Okay.
My wife and I have been working as long haul truckers from Canada to USA. And we've been saving up, and that's how I was able to, but truckers don't make that much money.
Yeah.
But I was able to save up enough for the retainer,
Mhm.
which has been publicly posted on here with proof of receipt of funds that are going to Matthew Copeland, who is a $1,000 an hour lawyer. And he's been very nice with offering a service for as low as he's got. He's got a couple hundred hours involved in this application, and at $1,000 an hour, you can well imagine for him to be charging me around the 20 to 30,000 USD. That's been a fairly good rate. Reason things were going really good until Facebook over the last 5 days just nuked me. But I was getting a pretty good response on and a lot of support. And all of a sudden, Facebook, because that's where I'm on, just decided to put me into shadow ban mode, and others can relate to that nightmare and realize that the suppression that we experience as Canadians is real. So yeah, I'm grateful for folks' support and or their prayers.
All right.
I thank you, Rick, for having me on your show. There were some tough questions, and there was also some belligerent people that have they're toxic, true and true, and there's no having a conversation with somebody that's filled with toxicity.
Yeah, well,
And I don't need to be. I don't need to.
Can I just say one
partake
thing real quick?
in some of that crap.
Well,
So this is just between me and you, Rick. I'm done
Yeah.
with everybody
yeah, I
else.
think
okay?
we're
I'm
kind
just
of
saying
done with the
thank you to you.
questions, guys.
And thank you to everybody. Whether you agree with me or not, I still say thank
Yeah.
you.
Thank you,
And I
James.
respect you, and I appreciate everybody. And I hope that someday we're successful in seeing our judicial system restored, so that future Canadians are not politically prosecuted, politically persecuted, religiously persecuted, and that the scales of justice are balanced so that there's not lawfare being committed against Canadians, present, past, and future. So with that, I wish everybody the best from my heart. God bless. Thank you. And
God bless you.
good night.
All right. And James, thank you. And as you've acknowledged, your case precedent setting, and when it goes through the process, you'll be putting, it just won't just be you going through the process. It'll be putting Canada on trial. So thank you, sir. Have a great night.
You too. Thank you.
Okay, guys, you want to go around the horn for some final thoughts tonight?
Yeah,
Oh, I got
Uh,
lots to say.
please.
Everybody talks at once, one at a time.
I wanted to thank you, Rick, and thank you to James. I can't imagine the stress that he has gone through and persecution on the persecution of his actions and beliefs. I just wish that, well, I can't speak for him, and I'm not in his position. It's easy for me to talk. I just wish he would do that here. But if he feels that he needs to, it's not safe enough, unfortunately, or for him to pursue his freedom, or his say in court here, then we'll see what happens in the future. I just wish everyone well. I thank you, Rick.
Yeah. Well, just to respond to that, as much as he's saying he's facing 15 years, based on legal precedent, it's likely he might get, if he goes to jail, he probably would. But based on everything that's been going on, it might amount to actually the real sentence to house arrest or maybe a few months in jail. That's likely where it would go. I've looked into it on the legal side. So highly, highly unlikely he would go to jail for 15 years. And he acknowledged that as well. That's that's the maximum, but this is actually viewed as a first offense. And, based on the other sentences that we've seen in similar cases throughout history and related to this, like Pat King got time served plus house arrest. That's what he got. And so James might be facing more serious charges, but I don't think that they're necessarily that much more serious, because I don't think these charges even relate to or acknowledge the involvement of U.S. military generals, because the Canadian government never went down that road, although I'm fairly certain Canadian intelligence was well aware, and that there was, redacted material that the Canadian government from CSIS was aware of that I'm revealing here and have been. And as much as I disagree with the U.S. involvement and influence and foreign interference in our politics,
that's not good.
I still have some degree of respect for Major Vallely and these other generals, but respectfully, stay the hell out of my country. Okay? The Prime Minister can't say it, but I sure can. Who wants to go next? Who's next?
Let us hope and pray. Let us hope and pray.
Yeah, let's save Lori for last.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, Jason, you want to say something? Is Jason still there?
Sure.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, sure. Okay, well, like for me, it's we did what we did, right? And for me, it's how I felt I was being treated and how I witnessed others being treated. But nevertheless, James is doing what he's doing. It could set a precedent. On the other hand, I think that everybody else who got charged dealt with it. Like even me, I had $57,000 in fines and I beat it. James, on the other hand, I don't know. I think like others, I think he should just deal with it in court in Canada, and that's my view. However, you do what you do. But yeah, man. But thanks for having us on there, Rick.
My privilege, and even though you hacked me, I appreciate. I accept your apology again, and thanks for calling in tonight, Jason, as well. Okay, who's next?
Yeah, thanks, Jason.
Who's next? It's strange, even people who think that guy's your enemy. It's strange because I'm making friends from people that I've had friction with, but that's cool. That's what politics is all about. Who else wants to speak next? Lori's last, so I can't remember who else was on the line.
Let me jump back in.
Okay, sure. Go ahead.
Okay, so quickly, I noticed that Jason is still there. The actual reason why Jason lost his business had nothing to do with COVID restrictions. It was because he wasn't properly licensed to run his restaurant. So that's the fact.
What are you talking about? What are you talking about? Listen, the article that you're reading from there, Danny, was because we were supposed to go into work with the government to put a licensed-based cannabis shop, but start with just a normal restaurant. And that's what we were doing. And we kept doing that. COVID came, and it did shut down not only me, but it also shut down the bar that was downstairs. And not only that, I was working with all the Indigenous reserves around Sudbury, working with the edibles, and they had to shut down the reserves because of COVID. So everybody had to shut down their businesses, and you weren't there. You're reading from whatever online and from the left-wing people in Sudbury who hate me because of what? Because I stood up against COVID? That's where you take your information from, Danny.
It's
never
literally
ever
mainstream media, Jason. It's
yeah,
mainstream
and it says one
news.
narrative.
It has nothing to do with
because
leftists.
I never got issued a pot license. I had a restaurant that kept going after it never. That was just at the beginning. That's what our intent was, but we never were able to do that. So the Sudbury Star writes an article and says, "Local business doesn't get their pot license." Well, of course not. We were
Why
doing
did
a regular restaurant, and we still kept going. You weren't ever even around there after that article, Danny.
Why did you move to Alberta?
Because my wife got a job and I got a job out here.
Did your wife get? Well, I want to ask this question. I was going to say I hope she's doing okay, because I understand that she was laid off or something regarding where she was working. Hopefully she's doing okay. And regarding doxing people, regarding hacking people's computers, you were full on involved in both of that. So
Well, he's apologized, Lori.
What was that?
He apologized. He has apologized too, Rick.
Well, to me, I don't know who else he's hacked.
Well, he's gone after quite a lot of people, and I ended up fighting back a
people
little bit.
attacking me like you, Danny. You throw one narrative to people and try and make us look bad. And you know what? This is what in 2022, Danny, 2019. We're 2025. People are over it. You know, we want to get on with our lives and do things.
Yeah.
And you're like,
You're not over it. You're here right now as an attack puppy
because I'm here
Bauder.
because I'm here for James.
No, he's not.
Who was doing something, man. I'm not here for myself, Danny. You're the one that's bringing it all up.
Well, this is all stuff that's relevant to his charges, is it not? And what's going on right now?
Who cares? It has nothing to do with me.
Who cares?
It has nothing to do with me. Nobody cares.
I don't know why you're. I don't know why you're here.
Danny,
I had questions for Bauder, not you. I didn't want to talk to you.
Whose show is it? First of all, Danny, is it your show? It's Maverick's. Maverick opened up the channel. I've been good, and I'm always respectful when I'm on. It's his show. I don't do this to anybody. And then you come on here and attack people if you're with 2-year-old, 3-year-old, 5-year-old stuff. We're 2025, man. We're going into 2026. Grow up, man. Get over it. Seriously,
you guys were caught
Nobody
in lies.
cares.
You and Bauder were lying on this show. About what? Well, Ukrainian soldiers and COVID
I never said
shutting
that.
down your business.
I never said that.
Give me a break.
Yeah, well,
I never said that.
Give me a break. That's
But
why,
did I say that?
this is why you have so many people fighting with you.
Did I say that, Danny? But honestly, did I
There
say
has to be a
that?
time when you have to stop being a bullshit artist and
Did
just
I
be
say
honest
that,
with people.
Danny?
no, Jason
Danny,
never,
did I
Jason
say
never
that?
said that. Jason didn't. James said that.
No,
Danny, I
Jason
think
said that he
Danny.
lost his
But in
business
any
because
event,
of COVID.
Danny.
we got to
Yeah.
wrap this up, guys. So let's just move. You guys can have a feud later if you want, but we're kind of
Hey,
getting
Rick,
to the end here.
do you know who?
I don't
Quickly,
care.
do you
It's
know-
like 3-4 years old. It doesn't matter anymore. It's like, get over it. Like, you're childish, Danny. Come on, get over it. You have anything else
I
to
think
do?
we
I'm
all.
childish.
Yeah,
I'm
and-
childish
like,
because I hold you guys to account.
Seriously.
Be
Yes,
honest.
and I
nothing.
think that's true. I think we're all looking
Quit
for
grifting,
truth. That's
quit
very
grifting
true.
off of people.
And Rick,
Don't go
Rick
to
is the
Panama
place.
and spend that $10,000 on a vacation.
Okay,
and then
okay.
ask
Rick
for
is the
legal
place.
advice.
It's
Come
time.
on.
It's time to move over to Lori for our final thought. That's why I left you to
Yeah.
last, Lori, because I knew that we'd get something level-headed, calm, and to take us home at the end of the show. It's over to you.
Well, Rick, there seems to be some diversity of what the objective was during the freedom movement and what actually went on with the convoy in Ottawa. And there seems to be people that were there for different motives, and some of them sound to me like they were very personal. But again, at this point in time, yes, it is 2025, and maybe Canada has some bigger fish to fry at this point in time, and we have to stand together, and
Yes.
hopefully that we're going to be able to all line up together and fight the foe from the south. And we all know where the threat is coming from, and we're doing some good stuff to diversify our trade and seek new trading partners, but we have to get down the road, and that's the calming the coming opinion from here.
Do you think, Lori, it's fair to say that what we heard tonight reinforces this information that I brought forward before, showing that Trump and his team and these generals, there was obviously U.S. foreign interference into Canadian politics through the Freedom Convoy, all of it related to separatism and this 51st state rhetoric?
Well, I had that belief right from the very beginning, Rick, that there was American influence, and certainly we've got some concerns from out west, and people want to do things a little bit different. But definitely, it allows an opportunity from people from outside to come in and stoke the fire.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Pretty clear now that it wasn't just like that. It was, as I said before, many things going on, different people with different objectives, involved in that Freedom Convoy and the freedom movement in Canada in general. And all of this really at the heart of it comes down to separatism.
Well, to me, it is such a small percentage of Canadians. I believe that Canadians want to get out there, and sure, you got some concerns. We have an election process in this country, and that's how we elect our politicians, and they make things happen for us. Canadians want to be able to go to work. They want to work hard. They want to make a living. They want to enjoy their families and their friends, and just getting down the road. That's all.
Yeah. With that, I'm going to let you decide tonight, Lori. Which song do you want to hear at the end of the night? Do you want to hear The Big Rig, the song about how there was all this deception going on during the Freedom Convoy, hence the big rig, as Trump was trying to rig the Freedom Convoy? Or do you want to hear Trump traitors?
Oh, I think Trump traitors. That'd be good.
Okay, folks, you got to just remember, on this 4th of July, Independence Day, Canada is a real country. See you tomorrow night, 7 p.m.
Thanks,
Eastern,
Rick. Good night.
on the flip side.
Didn't pick this fight, but here it came. Now I wanna play in a traitor's game. They sell us out for a tax cut deal. Shake his hand while they rob and steal. They call us blind, they call us weak, but they're the ones on their knees to the thief. Wave our flag while they burn it down, marching to the sound of a tyrant's crown. Patriots, they're bought and sold. Trade our land for American gold. Singing his tune, dancing his way, but they'll cry for Canada when it's too late. Yeah. Trump traitors, selling us out, burning our home for a tax break now. They stand with the wolves, spit on the brave, but they'll beg for Canada when it's in its grave. They talk real tough, but they bow real low, licking his boots while they put on a show. They chant his name, raise their fists up high, while the real ones fight to keep us alive. They don't fight fair, they twist the truth, say they're the future, but they kill the roots. They laugh now, but watch them run when the north wind howls and justice comes. Traitors, selling us out, burning our home for a tax break now. They stand with the wolves, spit on the brave, but they'll beg for Canada when it's in its grave. One day soon the tide will turn, and traitors pay when the fires burn. No statues raised, no banners flown, just names in dust where the traitors roam.
This has been a Maverick Multimedia production.